the DWP Commissioners on June the 7th. Barbara, will you call the roll, please?
Okay, we have Commissioners Holloman, Moss, Noonan, and Parfrey present.
Welcome, everyone. As you know, this will be broadcast on Channel 35. Please consult Channel 35 for specific dates and times. When I sat before the City Council to be confirmed as a commissioner, there was a lot of discussion about transparency. I pledged at that time, and as I'm sure Commissioners Noonan and Moss have since then, that transparency would be at the forefront of everything that we do as commissioners. To that end, I'd like to thank our General Manager and his staff for a very thoughtful, very informative, and well-delivered presentation to Councilwoman Perry, her E&E committee, and to the public on last Saturday. We acknowledge that we've got a long way to go to work through where we end up with, or where we end up at on rates, but I think Saturday was a great start. So I wanted to start this meeting by commending you, Mr. Nichols, and your staff on what I think was a great meeting for last Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you. There should have been more applause, but
I agree. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you for your initial comments.
Great. Thank you very much, Commissioner Holloman, and thank you for the kind comments. I also want to thank you very much. We had our full board was there gave up their Saturday morning to go through and listen to and comment on and ask questions on, very thoughtful questions on that presentation. So I appreciate you taking up the Saturday. I know we take up a lot of your time as it is already, but we have a lot going on in the whole area of consideration of our budget, our revenue requirements, and our rates. And right now, I'd like to move. I don't have any specific items other than our budget discussion.
Which we'll get to on item number 5, I believe it is.
Correct.
Great, thank you. With that, we have item 4, which are public comments. I believe we have one speaker card. Barbara?
Yes, for item number 4, I have one speaker card. Were you going to do number 3, comments and requests from commissioners, or?
I'm sorry. I skipped my fellow commissioners. Any comments from our commissioners? Commissioner Parfrey.
Yes, I'd like to echo your comments, Mr. Holloman. That was a very fine meeting before the City Council this last Saturday. In addition to that, I am asking the department to please prepare a study on the viability of using telecommunications to communicate with our Owens Valley offices. There are times that perhaps some of the latest technologies of video conferencing could cut back on some of our costs in terms of travel, and I would like to see if this is a possibility for our department in communicating with the Owens Valley office. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner,
I'll defer.
Commissioner Noonan.
Well, I'd like to reiterate that I felt that Saturday's meeting was very productive, and the feedback that I've received is that the public would really appreciate having more of these meetings, and I'm complete support of that. Also, I would like to pull item 16 out to discuss it further with the department staff.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. I also would like to, echo your comments about Saturday's meeting. I wish that more of the members of the committee had been there as well from the council. But I think it should be noted that that was a first time, I believe, that our commission and the EE committee got together to talk about things. So as far as transparency and working in a cooperative spirit, I think that's an excellent first step. I'd also like to call out items 25, 26, and 27. And then on the minutes, while I don't want to call out the minutes, but I do note that in the minutes that we're going to that are submitted for approval today, item number 3, there was a list of items that the commissioners had requested from staff to present to us, and I don't think all of those items have quite yet been fulfilled. So I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that and that we reiterate our request for those items to be given to us.
Thanks so much. However, you do approve that at the vote. You're not asking.
Yeah, no, I'm not calling it out. No.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we'll move to agenda item 4, which I believe we have one speaker card for.
We now have 3 speaker cards for
We
item
now
number
have
4.
3 speaker cards. Great.
Okay, the first speaker is Dr. Clyde Williams.
Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno, Northeast LA. Thank you very much for another monthly supply of yellow fire hydrant paint. Over 300 fire hydrants have been painted in the last 2.5 months. We don't do many per day, but we do get them done. So we're also making a list of the leaking fire hydrants and those that need caps, because some of them don't have caps. So we may be back next month asking for, hey, can we get any free caps to put on your fire hydrants? So, again, thank you. It works. People like to see bright, shiny, new or repainted fire hydrants. Feed-in tariff, it's not on the agenda today. Can we get a program of allocating at least 15 of the 75 megawatts to single-family dwelling 3-kilowatt units? We addressed the Department of Building and Safety, and they say that there's a program being organized someplace between Building and Safety and DWP, but we're trying to figure out where it is and what its status is and what it's going to do. So we're quite interested in getting that, because a lot of us like to have the panels, and 15 megawatts would only be, say, around 5,000 units. So that's big enough to make it worthwhile, small enough that it doesn't take away from the commercial areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, we have one more, number 4.
Oh, yes. The next speaker is John Cameron.
Good morning, Commissioners. I hope everyone is well. These are difficult times in Los Angeles. We will be discussing future rate increases, and we, the public, are willing to listen to what you have to say. But we are expecting that the department will also look at making large cuts and savings in their overhead. One of the areas that we really need to take a look at is the city attorney's office. It's time that we rotate our city attorneys at DWP. They must first and foremost be the representatives for the people of this great city, and not just the department. Thank you.
Okay, and our last speaker for number 4 is Candida Morez.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Holloman, Mr. Nichols. I hope I say this right. From your mouths to God's ears. I've been here for many, many years preaching transparency and accountability. And, sometimes it's bittersweet, but at least it's starting to happen. We're seeing it. And we know that we're going to have future increases, and those are the things that we're going to have to live with. But when you see families struggling, and these are not my ideas, or these are not my opinions, but when you go out and you talk to the public, and Mr. Nichols, we will be seeing you on the 15th in Van Nuys, and we hope to have a good crowd for you so that you can hear from them. But when you hear about families that are having their children shower 3 times a week instead of being able to shower every day because they can't afford, when they tell their children not to flush the toilets because they want to save on water, I think it's time that transparency and accountability does take place here. It doesn't matter when it comes, as long as it comes, because the last thing I want to do is see what's happening in the newspaper, people talking about that the workers of this great department must take the cuts. They were the smart ones that go to work for DWP back in the day when nobody else wanted those jobs. So why should we punish them? But that doesn't mean that they can't be held accountable, and it doesn't mean that you folks can't bring about the change in this department. The cuts, the savings, each and every one of you, I know if I asked you over and over again, you could come up with savings to show us how to reduce costs at the department. So we're going to go through difficult times. We're going to have to do what we have to do. But the public's willing to do that. But I ask you, as people, individuals who are working at the greatest DWP public utility in the city, to help us to help us, because you know what, it is sad when families are struggling to pay their bills and keep their mortgages, and water and power are so essential, and they're making their kids, it's just not right. It's not right, especially when we can do and make the changes that are needed to bring about accountability in this city. So thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, Mr. Nichols, you came here and said you'd like to fix things. You're doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the last card for 4.
Great. Moving on to agenda item 5, which is the review of the DWP proposed budget for fiscal year 2011 and 12. Thank you.
And I do have 2 speaker cards.
And we have 2 speaker cards. You call them forward, please.
Okay. The first speaker is Dr. Clyde Williams. Dr. Clyde Williams, speaker for 5.
Can we have the presentation before the public comments?
Okay. We'll hold public comment until after the presentation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. General Manager Nichols, please.
Thank you very much. We have a lot of information that has been provided to the commissioners. It's in kind of 3 packages. One is a relatively succinct overview of our fiscal year 2011-12 budget. There is a more detailed appendix to provide some additional information, and we'll give just simply an overview of the content of that. I'll probably dip into a couple of slides in that. And then each of the commissioners has a more detailed binder that has some additional information in that. And after I've gone through the presentation, I'll have Ann Santilli give you an overview of what are some of the details that are in that. Some details maybe more than you may need to know, but it provides some deeper dive into things that are consistent and reflected in this overview. Okay.
We'll fix it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Reggie, why is it going to automatically to the end? Technical difficulty here, or operator error, one of the 2.
Okay.
That would be me as the operator, by the way, not Mr. Black.
Okay. You want me to operate it from here?
Well, let me see. If I can push this button and it does what I want to do, I'll operate it from here.
No.
No, you'll operate it from there. I don't know what's going on with this. Keeps going automatically to the last slide, so I'm not sure why it's doing that.
It's, oh, yeah. There we go.
And that sums our presentation.
Do I hear a motion? It'll work.
Yeah, will it work now? All right, great, thank you. What we're going to cover here is an overall approach that we're taking to the budget, which is a very different approach. I want to give a little bit of view for that in a moment. We're going to talk about a basic business case, which is kind of a different concept than we've had before, and then we'll compare. Much of what we're going to compare here is comparing this year's fiscal budget, coming year fiscal budget, to our almost ending current year budget as a pretty important metric of how things are changing. And we'll go over some of the key budget factors that are driving those changes, and then talk a bit about some important aspects as well in our reliability, both on the water and the power side, and go into some of the earlier comments in terms of what are we doing in the staffing area as a part of our budget. There's a lot more information in the appendix, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But before I drill into this, I think it's important to put in context that we have a lot of things that we're coming at the public with right now that I think is probably a little less than crystal clear as to how they interrelate. So I'd like to give a little bit of a view of that. As Commissioner Holloman indicated in his opening comments, on Saturday we had, I believe it was the first ever combined meeting between our Board of Commissioners and the Energy and Environment Committee of the City Council. And that was a first step towards what is a rate consideration process. I know there were a few people at that meeting who commented, well, you haven't talked about rates. And they're right. we didn't talk specifically about rates at that process, at that meeting. And the reason being, for those of you who were there, know it was a fairly lengthy meeting as it was. We went over 2.5 hours, including comments on that from a number of people in the audience. And it was to set the basic foundation of understanding what are the things that are driving our business, what are the things that are driving our costs, what are the types of issues that we're dealing with over which we have control, and those of which, greater list, frankly, over which we don't, and what are the rough levels of dollars associated with that, to try to set a basic foundation of understanding. And I know if you're a customer, you're looking at it saying that, well, that's great, that's fine, that gives me an idea of some really big dollars, but what does that mean in terms of how is that going to hit my water and power rates? And just so you're not disappointed, you're not going to hear how it hits your water and power rates today either, because that's not the purpose of today's meeting. Today's meeting is we have a fiscal year budget here that our board needs to approve before July. And this budget that we're going to discuss today is still not a final budget. And we'll see if it works great. It does, good. And that is, this is a budget that is meeting what we call a basic needs, basic business needs budget. It's not a budget that I would say would endorse as a recommended budget of what we should be doing as a department. And that's a little bit difficult in part for, I think, for our board to try to deal with, because we're going to be going forward as part of a rates consideration process kicking off next week with a number of workshops to get some input into, here are the basic budget items that we have to do. We either have to do these by law, or we have to do them as a minimum to keep the water flowing and keep the lights on. Are those inclusive of everything that we should do and want to do? No, I don't believe they are. But I think given where we are in the economy right now, it's important to recognize that we need to be as tight as we can on our costs, and we should make to do some of those other things, to do things in terms of higher level of fundings, or what we kind of refer to as strategic investments in the water supply and the power supply development area, of more water conservation, more recycled water on the power side, more energy efficiency, perhaps a more robust renewable energy mix, are types of things that there are policy issues that we need to address. And we think that we should get our stakeholders, and particularly our customers' input on some of those policy considerations, and tell them at the same time what the amount of rate adjustments would be necessary to act on those policies. And so that's what we're going to be doing, not today, but in these upcoming workshops, that's leading to then getting your input and feedback to our board, and then ultimately to Energy Environment Committee and the full council on preferences on that, at which time we will bring back to our board any adjustments that might happen in this budget that we're talking about. So there could be additional reliability improvements on both the water and power side that people say, we realize we're behind where we want to be, we should put in more, and here's what that would be, and we can provide some guidance back and make a decision on that. Similarly, we should do more on these strategic investments. Anything that we do based on that process over the next couple of months or so to do that would then come back and result in modifications to the budget numbers that you're going to see here today. So this is, I guess the best way to characterize this is a placeholder minimum kind of level of budget. So with that understanding, that's what we're going to be talking about today, and to try to provide a little bit of color with respect to that. So again, it's what we refer to as a basic business case, and I'd like to give an overview of what are the summary items that are in that. And first, starting with our water system, we have a number of things. You're going to see a parallel representation here for both water and for power. We have a number of legal mandates, and those include our water treatment. Bigger items on that is our ultraviolet treatment plants that, those of you who follow us know that we just did a major groundbreaking on one back in April. We have others as well. We have an item that we've talked about for quite some time on our reservoir covers. And those reservoir covers are, again, to meet mandated requirements related to safe drinking water, EPA requirements. Our budget in here includes floating covers. This is the basic needs. It does not include dollars for buried tanks. That doesn't mean a decision has been made on that. We're still a draft environmental impact report on that issue out there right now. Just in terms of the dollars that are in here, they don't reflect the much more expensive buried tank options in here, so just for clarity. And the Owens Lake management efforts and our dust mitigation up there, the dollars in there are dollars that are largely dictated to us and are significant requirements and things that are in our basic needs budget because we have to meet those requirements. Going down to the next category of the basic items here is local supply, local water supply. These are items where we largely do have some discretion, but this budget here reflects, frankly, less than we would like to be able to do. We have included in here our major harbor water recycling project. We have an agreement in place on that. We're going forward with that. It's about a $32 million capital project that provides water down to some major industrial uses, recycled water that comes out of Hyperion wastewater treatment to meet there. And that water there then displaces potable water that we can use elsewhere in our system. It does not include some half a dozen much smaller recycled water projects that we'd like to go forward with, but we have deferred, at least for purposes of this basic case, and we'll get input in the public as to what people think about should we do those and what would be the cost of adding those and what would be the rate effect of adding those. But again, we're not going to talk about that incremental cost here today. Similarly, this heard us all talk about how the San Fernando groundwater aquifer has contamination. It's our major source for incremental groundwater supply that we could get from either more stormwater capture on a good scale and putting some recycled water in there, but we have to clean up that groundwater aquifer first. The plan in here has finishing the master plan for that, which is not a trivial item. It's a multi-million-dollar study. But it doesn't include actually starting with any execution of projects that would then use more of that aquifer. So that's again, an item we'll be talking about as part of our broader rate consideration. Moving now to the next big major area of this budget is reliability improvement. And overall, it differs a little bit by some of the line items here, but it's about a 15% reduction from where we were in water reliability, infrastructure improvement, and replacement of our aging system that we did last year. So it's about 95,000 feet of pipeline replacement. This past year, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had a target of about 130,000 feet. We're going to end up at about, we had to cut back on that because of where we were on our revenue levels based on not having had what we thought we were going to get with the rate adjustment last year. So we got down to about, this year I think we'll complete about 110,000 feet.
We just got 110, we just got that in.
Okay, good, great. So this includes, this is actually going back, if memory serves me right, Jim, this goes back to about the level we were at FY 2009 and 10 levels. So we've gone back to what our formal level was, hoping and planning to be ramping up more. This doesn't do that ramp up. It includes also a 15% reduction in our meter replacements and our pump station and regulator station replacements. We'll get into a little bit more on that. Is that what we'd like to do? No, it's not, frankly. Can we get by with that? Yeah, we probably can. This means we're going to be fixing more things when it breaks, and we're kind of pushing that can down the road a little bit more. The other item on here that really gets more into our revenue requirement area and the rate side, so I'm really not talking about it in this budget, but it's an important thing to keep in mind is, and we'll get into a couple of comparative slides on where we are at current rates versus future budgets that we reviewed on Saturday morning. to recognize we've got a big capital program growing in both water and in power, and to do that, we have to have a certain level of financial reserves and capability that we can borrow that money. So that's what item doesn't show up as a specific budget item in here. It's something that will drive our costs going forward. So moving now to a kind of a parallel set of what we're looking at on the power side on your screen here. To the next page, our legal mandates there affect our budgets too, things that we can't avoid. We're starting, in fact, we broke ground and started on rebuilding one of our coastal gas-fired plants, the Haynes Generating Units 5 and 6. Two things that are driving that from a regulatory perspective. One is to meet NOx air emission requirements from the Southern California Air Quality Management District. And at the same time, this is part of our converting one of many of those plants from ocean cooling to zero water cooling, period, to dry cooling. It's the first step of a multi-stage process. Other legal mandate is we are meeting our 20% renewable energy requirement. That is no longer a goal, it's a law. And this includes, as part of that, 2 utility scale solar projects, cumulatively about 22 megawatts that are starting up this coming year as well. On the local supply, again, we had local water supply issues. Now we have local power supply that we're trying to do as well. One of those, I consider energy efficiency a very important power supply by reducing the amount of energy that we need. We have a budget level in here, and we'll get into dollars on this as we get in further to this. That gives us an incremental 0.5% per year of total energy being met by energy efficiency. It's not where we want to be, and it's a little bit level below where we were, but we'll go into that comparison a little bit later. It also grows our local solar programs. This is different from these two 11 megawatt solar plants that I talked about under our renewable supply base case. This includes our solar incentive program, is a big ticket item on this. And we are funding that at $60 million in this next year, which for those of you who've been following our solar incentive program, that is double the budget that we were planning on doing at $30 million a year. And the way we're able to do that and keep that as part of our base budget and base needs is that we're now financing those rebates that we're putting out there, and that incredibly reduces the annual cost into our rates, and it allows us to catch up. Those of you who have been following that know that we've had just a tremendous interest in our solar program that started up kind of mid-year last year, and we were basically oversubscribed. We temporarily suspended that program. That is a temporary suspension, and we'll be going forward with that, and we're trying to catch up with the backlog by doing more next year and the year thereafter. The next major item, just like on the water side, we have reliability improvement, and this has transmission distribution replacements. This is, again, at a cutback from where we were. It's about a 10 to 12% reduction in where we were last year, and it's not at a level where we want to be, but it's something that we think, at least as a minimum of a base case, we should be doing, and we'll be talking during the course of our rates consideration about should we be doing more and what would that more cost us to do. And there were also another major item in that is our Castaic hydro pump storage plant for us is being modernized. It's been a multi-year process, and we're upgrading that for both reliability, and we actually get more power out of that as well. And just as we had in the water side, we're going to have major capital programs going forward, so we need to make sure that we have the financial reserves that enable us to have the credit rating to be able to issue those bonds at a favorable cost of money. So that's kind of the high level. Here I'd like to dig in a little bit more detail as we go through on kind of comparing some things a little bit more year over year, and we'll drill in even further on this as we get into the presentation. This compares just some of the key items combined for both water and power on our basic expenditure plan summary. And we have, on the top, we have operating expenses comprised of purchase power and purchase fuel and purchase water, and then our other key operating maintenance costs of labor and benefits, materials, and our contracts, and then the ubiquitous other. And then our depreciation line, and depreciation is basically, that's how we capture our debt, repayment of our debt and amortization of our existing assets. When you look at this overall, you'll see that both water and power were basically about the same total operating expense. And the overall, significant differences I'll get into when we get into water and get into power, because we're going to break this out, so I'll get into that in the next ones. But as you see down there, while that's the same, we've got down at the bottom here, this is the capital expenditures. These are the items that we finance, and they don't hit our budget in that amount. They hit our budget in the form of either depreciation or debt service as we move forward. And here, the difference between these, that's a 28% net increase in our capital from what we've done in the past, or about over $0.4 billion more that we're spending in this next fiscal year for our basic needs budget. This isn't frankly what we would all like to be able to do, but it gives you a feel for it. So let's take the pieces of that bigger piece now and talk about the water expenditure plan. And this is the same format. One of the things I think is important to note at the top is we're really glad that we had a good water year this year. We're glad that we have a lot of snow up in the mountains. We're glad that we're getting water, and we're glad that we're actually used a little bit less water going into it because we had a wetter winter here down in LA. Because all in, our purchased water, and that's purchases principally from Metropolitan Water District, has gone down 27% compared to last year. And that's like a $30 million savings. Now, we'd like to think that that's going to happen year over year. We don't know that, so it's for our planning purposes, we have to assume that the very next year that comes right back up again to average. We have no other way to assume otherwise. But the benefit of having that is that it helps offset some of these other expenses that are going the other direction. You'll see in here that our labor costs are about the same in water, a little bit of an uptick. Our benefit costs have gone up. We'll get into that. It's principally our pension, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Materials costs are up a bit. Our contracts are up a bit, and a number of other items that we could drill into and are in your board books are actually down almost 20%. All in the water side, our net operating expenses are down about 6%. But that's principally, almost practically exclusively, practically because of purchased water offsetting most of those big uptick items.
Mr. Nichols, the other row, I'm used to seeing other, but I'm not used to seeing other as large as it is relative to labor and purchased water, et cetera. Can you give us just a brief, high-level explanation as to what's in that number?
Yeah, I'll let Jim give us an overview.
I asked the same question, and when I saw the way the slide was presented, it's kind of unfortunate just to try to limit the slide to a limited number of buckets and not make it too busy. But what we've got included in here, some of the main chunks are payments that we're making to other agencies. So we included in here $15 million in payments made to the County of Inyo, Great Basin, some of our MWD program costs, and then also Bureau of Sanitation, some of the programs that we're doing there. And the reason is under our accounting system, they're accounted for under a cost element 99 because it's a payment to another agency as opposed to a labor, material, or contract payment. So it's a kind of an accounting thing. We also have $21 million in equipment rentals is included in here. I've questioned, I think in the future, I think contracts and equipment rentals are kind of the same thing. We might want to include that in there because it's a very big category. But we do use a lot of equipment rentals where it's more efficient than buying fleet equipment. We've had this discussion here in the board about buying. We know it's very expensive to buy equipment, so we try to have a proper balance between renting and buying equipment. We have $18 million in here for my utility bill, for the water system, to pay the power system, for the electricity that we use.
Water.
And then there's also about $14 million in payments almost exclusively to other city departments, including street paving repair fees, building permit fees, sewer repair fees, and about $1.5 million that we pay to the fire department to test fire hydrants. So that's the big chunk.
Yeah, I would just suggest in the next iteration that you maybe illuminate some of those out separately, because when you see a big other, it kind of begs the question.
I agree.
That's very good point. We'll, you'll have a similar question when you get to the power side. It's a smaller number, but it goes a different direction, and give a heads up to Aaron to be ready to talk about that one in a couple of minutes. But our interest costs are up over here in part because of additional financing we're doing. We have a pretty capital intensive program, and that's shown back down here on the bottom when we get it again in that same fashion of our capital investment. Part of that is, and we'll explain that in a little more detail, is we're doing more capitalizing of some of the things that we used to expense. I know it's accounting jargon, but basically instead of just paying for things like our water recycling program, paying cash out and counting it as a cash expense in the current year for our conservation and recycle programs and incentive programs and things of that sort, we recognize that many of those are long-lived assets that are a replacement for buying purchased water. And therefore, as we'll get into talking a little bit later here, we're either recognizing repaying that over a longer period of time or literally financing some of that. So we get the programs done, but it gets it done at a lower cost per year to our customers and doesn't hit our rates as hard.
Yeah, Mr. Nichols, I just want to commend you for working on this and to finding ways to reduce the costs overall. I think that's been a great improvement, and we're able to maintain many of our programs in this, basic business case that probably would not have been able to be maintained had we not financed it this way. So thank you.
Appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. We started looking at what our costs were and looking at these programs and looking how our costs were going to go up and said there's got to be a better way to do this, and it's helped. This next one actually breaks this out. Now, this takes it out a little more in the water. This is our water fund, and it kind of breaks it out a little bit more by categories. And we got two groups here. We have our operation and maintenance expense, and then the categories of that here, and then our capital expenditures. So these match gives you a little bit more detail of that upper and lower amounts that we had on these previous tables that we went through. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in going through these other than some of the big items, and it largely reflects the significant swings that you're seeing, especially with these big negative items on the top and the big, huge percent positive items on the bottom, are exactly that issue that we just talked about. We're taking water conservation, and if you were to look initially at water conservation and say, well, we spent $26 million last year, we're spending $8 million this year, it's almost a 70% reduction. Oh my gosh, and this is really a huge reversal. Well, it is a bit of an overall reversal, but if you go down the line below, down the capital side, we've got water conservation that's going. We had $1 million that was, basically financed or capitalized and spread out over multi-years. Now we're going to do $10 million of that. So, it's a huge percentage increase. Net, we are going from a total commitment last year of the $26 million in O&M last year to the $1 million compared to the $8 million to 10. So it's $27 million last year compared to $18 million total commitment this year. So yes, it's down, but it's not down as ugly as, to be blunt, as the operation thing would show. All in, we get a similar situation on some of our regulatory compliance. We're as you see down that very bottom item, here we're going from $203 to $284 million of capital, a 40% increase, and we're capitalizing the vast majority of that, whereas despite the fact we're having a big increase in our regulatory things we talked about before, we're actually pretty much about even in the O&M side of things. So we're trying to do what we can to hit these big capital items and spread those costs out so they don't impact our budget. Net, we've got that 3% reduction in our O&M, but a 22% increase in our capital. Power system is somewhat similar to that. The key items on here that are big changes are our labor is actually down. Part of that's our headcount reduction that we're doing, the beginning of that. Just like we had before on water, our benefits are up. It's principally pension-related costs. We'll talk about that a little bit later and why that is. Materials are up. Contracts are down. One of the things that we're doing is not only have we cut back our labor, but we have seriously cut back on the amount of things that we're contracting out, almost 40% year over year. And Aram, I'll put you on the spot with regard to that kind of unusual other item.
So on the category of the others, what we mainly reserve that category for is for fees, for emission fees and administrative fees and so on. We do pay water utility charges, but those are all rolled into, for example, the falling water charges are rolled into the purchase power that we have under the renewable generation on the small hydro. So we do have similar categories. It's treated a little bit differently. We'll make sure those are all lined up the same way.
Is the purchase fuel reduction because of the cost of fuel, or we're using less fuel?
It's the purchase power and fuel costs are rolled into there. So there's a shift in the generation versus purchase power that we account for. And also, it's a true up on what we assume the fuel prices are going to be and what the market was.
All in, our total operating expense is up about 2% compared to last year. The water, there's another item on here that is not in the water side, and that is the city transfer. City transfer is tied solely to power, and it's a function not of this year's budget. It's a function of the prior year's budget, and our net 8% of that prior year budget. So it's just it's a minor reduction that we're projecting based on this next year's transfer that we pay in fiscal year 11-12 is based on the actual performance of our current, just about ending fiscal year. The capital investment side is similar to the water side in terms of our net increase. We're about a 32% increase, over $300 million that we're adding to our capital budget year over year, and part of that is efforts where we've been trying to, again, some things are just projects that we're doing that are larger. Other cases as well, we're trying to take some things that were O&M expense items that have long-term lives and work that through and finance it instead. And so this is similar to what we did with the water. Again, we're talking about what are some of the major components of those O&M items at the top, and the components of our major capital items here at the bottom. And again, you look at those top two items where the big swings are percentage-wise. Here, we're going down in renewable energy. We're going down in energy efficiency. On the O&M side, that doesn't mean that we're doing necessarily so much less on that. It's because we're capitalizing much more of that. We're financing or amortizing the costs over those expenses. And you can see that down here where renewable energy is going up, almost 4 times in terms of what our cap, almost $200 million compared to $42 million last year that we had in there. And our energy efficiency program is percentage-wise a huge swing. We were basically doing everything in energy efficiency was being done as an expense item. This year, coming year, it's $18 million on expensing it, and $32 million that we're effectively financing or capitalizing, and only $2 million compared to what we did $2 million last year. So it's the same type of shift that we were doing in the water budgets, water conservation and recycled water programs. And again, the benefit of that is to not hit our rates as heavily and try to get as much done as we can, but yet still we're not doing as much in this as we want to do on energy efficiency in particular. Our other key items in here is our reliability programs are on the O&M side are down a few percentage points, but on our reliability items on the capital side are down double-digit percentage, and that reflects this fact that we're talking about doing about a 12% or so reduction in our reliability program, and compared to what we did in the prior year for power. And that's, is that a level that we want to do? No, it's not. We really want to do more. Part of what we're doing here is trying to capitalize more of that, again, so it doesn't hit our rates as hard, but it still overall is not the level of investment that we would like to see. Net in, we're down overall on our O&M costs, a little bit better than we were on water, and we're even higher on our capital requirements going forward because of all these capital investments that we're doing. At the risk of drilling in a little too detailed, and I'll try to get through this here a little more quickly, and I'm not going to go through all these items, and you're welcome to look at them if you have some questions about them. I'll just hit a couple of high points. Is taking in what are some of the specific projects in here. This is combined, this is water, this is combined capital and O&M, so this is putting together the, if you will, kind of the mortgage amount, capitalization amounts, and your O&M budget, and putting the two together to give an idea of how we've changed. Water quality is about the same. Owens Lake is up. Our infrastructure improvement is down a bit. Our recycled water actually is up compared to where it was before. Our water conservation, as I talked about earlier, net combined is down. Our groundwater cleanup is still kind of steady efforts, and it's about the same. And our stormwater capture is a minor reduction, but it's kind of been a minor piece of what our budget has been overall in any event. The next takes that same for the power side, and some of the big ticket items on here. And again, this is a combination of both capital and O&M, so it gives an indication of our total commitment to each of these types of programs this next year versus this year. And big ticket items here are the Haynes plant, where we're going from 182 to almost $400 million because we're really getting into, previously we bought some equipment, now we're installing and constructing. Our solar plants, kind of a similar issue here, which we've bumped up significantly on that, and our local solar programs, and we're starting a fledgling start of our feed-in tariff. The power reliability reflects that reduction that I talked about before, going from down by some $80 million. And this is you heard us talk about our customer service project. That's included in there. And this shows that net combined reduction of our energy efficiency program. Again, less than we would like it to be. I'd like to talk briefly about some of those key things on infrastructure improvement. This slide here simply shows historically, we've talked to those of you who followed and those of you who were there on Saturday morning. As our board knows, we talked about having somewhere between a 200 and a 400 year replacement rate. This gives you an idea about why we have an old system. This is going back to 1895, actually older than me. And the shape of each year, how much we have done in the way of feet of pipe, starting at 1,000 feet. So this is, feet of pipe that are installed in our system. So all this, this line back here, everything that was installed before here, was 100 years old. We still have 400,000 feet of it. Back here is everything that was installed 90 years or older. We still got 1.5 million feet of that out there. And yet, you know, within 8 years from now, we're going to have still 1.5 million feet operating in our system that's more than 100 years old. Our current budget this year is replacing 95,000 feet a year, and you don't have to be doing higher math to realize we're not getting ahead of the curve at that rate. So is this a level of investment that we think we should be doing? No, I think it's not enough. So as a result, we have, this just shows the, wrong button. This shows the amount that we have done, the amount that we have put into our water reliability improvement, infrastructure improvement year by year. And we've, you know, this line here is the difference between last year and where we are now. And we've been ramping up pretty regularly on that. What we've done now is we're taking a breather. We're basically keeping that flat, hoping to then continue the ramp, but recognizing in the near term here that we hope the economy turns around, and this is cutting it back for right now. And we don't think it's going to necessarily hurt us per se, but it's not getting us where we want to be. I don't know, Jim, if you want to make a comment on that?
And I just wanted to make the point that on this graph, the red part of the graph is the capital expenditure. So that's the part that we're spending to replace things and replace old things. The blue part is where we're fixing things. So whenever we have main breaks and main leaks, that's coming out of the blue, and that's why kind of the less you spend in the red, the more you're going to spend in the blue. And the idea is to have the overall bar be optimized as low as possible. But we know that we're going to need to spend more in the capital.
I have questions to that. Does the cost of repairing solely address replacing the piping, or does it also include potential litigation costs?
The repair costs normally do not include replacing the piping. It's usually putting some sort of a patch or a fix on it. And if there are damages associated with the event, that's also included in there too.
But the repairs don't elongate the life at all? They
No.
just patch it until we can get
Pretty
through it.
much it's just a patch, fix it, and deal with it another day.
Like putting a patch on your flat tire.
And looking at pipe replacement and figuring out what particular pipes to replace, is age the best criterion for that, or are there other criteria that are involved?
Age is kind of a convenient surrogate, but it's actually, when we look at the individual factors, it's probably not one of the main factors. What are the main factors is what's the leak history of the pipe been, what kind of material the pipe is made out of, and what kind of soil the pipe is in. Those are the three main indicators that we've been using. And one of the things we've been doing to help drive down the leak numbers is not only, because we've increased replacements, but kind of modestly increased them, but we've tried to really be much more strategic about which pipes we replace. And some of these things, pipes that were in difficult areas, they're in a hillside, or they're in a hard place to get to, we kind of put those off, and we were fixing those. We really should have been replacing them. So now we've kind of said, you know what, we're going to bite the bullet. We're going to fix the stuff that needs to be, replace the stuff that needs to be replaced today, fix the stuff that can be fixed, and that's helped drive our numbers down. But there's limits to how much you can do that. In the end, going back to that previous slide, you just have to replace more pipe to catch up with those big booms that we had, in the like 1920 and then in the post-war years. Those are the big periods where there was a lot of pipe installed.
Thanks, Jim. Again, just a quick reminder, we've got, pushing that one on. We've been ramping up, we've been spending more, and we've been getting the benefit of that. This shows the total breaks, these are main leaks. I'll let Jim decide the difference between a leak and a break, but these are our leaks, and the tan portion here are the major breaks in there, and so the total is the total of the two by year, and going back to 2004, and as we ramped up those expenditures, general trend is it's kind of trending down where we want it to be. Still collectively over 1,200 combined leaks and breaks on our system, we only hear in the news about the big ones, but there's a lot of them, about 3.5 a day on average that we have out there. We're going the right direction. We'd like to see that going down faster, and the only way we're going to see that continue going down faster is to keep those expenditures going up each year.
So, Jim, it might be helpful also to see that same graph expressed in acre feet or gallons to see if not just incidents of breaks, but actually true losses would be helpful.
Yeah, you know, we've looked at that, and I don't mean to diminish the value of the water that we lose in the breaks, but even a big break like cold water, the amount of water and the replacement costs. Let's talk about replacement costs, because water is precious and you can't afford to lose any of it. But if you look at from a replacement cost basis, it kind of pales in comparison to the cost of the pipe and the labor and digging the holes and the materials and all that sort of thing. So our big drivers on this are to avoid, and the damage, as Commissioner Noonan pointed out, you know, when we have something like cold water break where we had a lot of property damage, those are the big cost items on this. Because we do include the lost water in our breakage and our overall, what we call non-revenue water, which has been trending. Lately, it's been below 4%, which is actually very good for the industry, where they have kind of a, if you're below 10%, that's probably not one of your higher priority things to worry about in a water system, and we're well below half of that. So I think we have a pretty tight system, and I feel good about that. I hate to see water running down the street for any reason, but we've kind of looked at that, and it's not one of your headline things when you talk about.
Yeah, but the financial hit is on the replacement of the pipe.
Exactly.
And labor costs associated.
Exactly, yeah.
And the difference between a leak and a break? Sorry.
The term that I guess we used to call them blowouts. Now we're calling them breaks. 100 square feet of pavement damage as part of the incident. Somewhat arbitrary. It does fall into a different category when you're paying for street damage restoration fees. That's kind of why we did it. But when we had that spate in 2009, the overall leak rate wasn't that much, but we did have a pretty significant amount of the blowouts, the breaks. Those are the ones that tend to get on the news and people tend to see.
Fire trucks end up in the hole.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is kind of a complicated slide. And it's kind of backwards from how you might think it would be done. But what this is showing on the left side here is the thousands of poles installed in any given year. This is our population of people in Los Angeles. So we're going back to 1916 to 21. These are 5-year. These are 5-year increments for each one of these. Back to today, or actually let's go back to 2006 because that's where we have good data. This is when we were installing poles, and so these are the ones right now. All of these in here are over 70 years old. This huge piece in here, this big lump here that was built between the basically the 50s and the 50s and 60s are now between 40 and 70 years old. As our population has grown, we've infilled, so we're not. LA isn't expanding anymore, so thankfully we're not putting a lot of new poles in. We got a bunch of old poles out there, and thankfully as our population is grown, we're not increasing that number, but we're not getting ahead of it as well. And this shows the same type of graph that we just talked about for water. Each of these, again, this is our break between historic and projected, just like we had on water. This is our capital expenditures that we're doing for our reliability improvement, replacing poles and cross arms and cables and transformers. things that we all might think are kind of boring but are pretty important to keep the lights on. And then this is the O&M component of that. So we were kind of not pretty level at this, back at about $500 million a year. That's right, $500 million a year. And then about 2006, after we saw some problems in our system, we started ramping that up and ramped it up pretty significantly to get up at a level that was at least closer to where we wanted to be, to try to beat down that big bulge of poles and other things that are with it. But we're now looking at, again, we're cutting this back next year, again with the notion, let's cut some things back in the near term, recognize where we are in the economy, hope that the economy turns around a bit and we can afford this a little bit better going forward. But this isn't where we want to be. You know, we would have expected to be ramping this up at a level like this continuously. Now, is 1 year's significant drop and dropping all of these down, you know, $30–40 million a year less than where we might like them to otherwise be, going to be a huge problem tomorrow? Yeah, maybe not, but it's getting us further behind the curve. It's not getting us where we want to be, and it's a budget level that, frankly, isn't one that we advocate, but it's one that we're saying is at a basic level we can't see going anything less than that. And just like we show what we're doing in the water, this shows our results that we've been getting. This shows, top one is your average interruption frequency index. So what's that mean? Well, that means how often do we have an outage? And you know, we were doing pretty well down here. This is interruptions per year, and then we had this huge piece that just bumped up significantly in 2005. That's when we went back and started increasing our program. Started increasing that, we got some benefits, and we've leveled out fairly well. So the kind of the number of outages we've had has been better, not necessarily where we want it to be. The other one shows the duration, and our durations were just, so when it goes out, how long is it out? I mean, you can live with something that's out for 5 minutes. This goes from 40 minutes down here at the bottom up to about 160 minutes at the top. We've made a big improvement by those dollars, but we're starting to creep back up again. So we're not ahead of it. We're still constantly playing catch up with it. This budget doesn't really keep us where we want to be. Talk briefly about staffing, because I know headcount and things are important here. This just shows the funded levels that we had. Again, this is power. The yellow wash on top is water. And so we're talking at about 9,600 funded positions that we had, and this just takes it down. This is the cost cuts that we announced earlier this year on reducing our headcount. We're going to cut over 600 positions here over the next 3 years. And we talked earlier a little bit about some of our overall benefits costs. Basically, at the end of the day, the key difference in the slice here is pension being at about 61% combined water and power, and going up about not quite 10% year over year, and that's basically explained kind of in this next slide. And that is, this compares what in 2010 what we projected our retirement plan funding to be, our pension costs, and this jump, this was what we saw for the yellow was what we saw for our previously last year's budget projection. The difference between here and here is effectively that headcount reduction that we're seeing. So we have lower pension costs for that. But why are they still going up like this? They're going up like this is largely because of just the continuation of the hit that everybody's pension plans and 401ks and savings accounts and everything else happened when our economy hit the skids in 2008. Our value came down in our funded pension plans, And we are increasing that and rolling that up and spreading that over a 5-year period of time to get it back up, so we have the funding levels back up to where they need to be, and it costs money, and that's basically the primary reason for that uptick.
May I ask a question about the 600 positions you intend to eliminate over the next 3 years?
Yes.
From which departments will those cuts be focused on?
Well, it's across the board. It's in power, it's in water, and it's in our joint system, and those are almost one, not quite, but almost one third across the group there.
Yeah, my concern is if we reflect back on Saturday, there were so many people that voiced that they had installed solar panels and that it was taking an obscene amount of time to get the meters installed. And so, I'm hoping that we can make certain areas of our department more efficient while improving our customer service in that capacity. Well,
it's a great question, and one of the things that we're doing is, I said, I institute a hiring freeze. It's not a hard freeze. It can't be, because we're having, somewhere on the order of 300 to 500 people a year retiring. We talked about that. And so we're not having a hard freeze because we need to replace people, but we don't need to replace people in every single position that we have. Some are just more critical than others in terms of keeping the lights on, keeping the water flowing, trying to do what we need to do in the customer service area, trying to do what we can do in our reliability improvement efforts. At the end of the day, we can't determine who's going to retire when they decide to retire, who's going to try to change, who's going to decide to change their careers and leave the department. We are going through. I get on my desk, because we worked it out. I said, whatever we hire, whoever we promote, and to keep tabs on it, it goes through me. And our senior AGMs work with me on that. We have a plan associated with that. They have criteria that they're using for what's really key and important to make sure that we do hit those key areas as we look to go backfill people that have left and promote those when we need to promote them based on positions that get empty. And we're working through that. We're trying to do as best we can to meet those things that need those requirements. Will we get there and be able to ramp up as quickly as we'd like? I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure. We're really working at trying to prioritize having people for those key areas.
I think the other thing that's important relative to that is as we think about displacing 600 people, that we also think about economic development in ways that we create jobs outside of the department with this economic engine that we have, so that, they may not be employees of the Department of Water and Power, but we are creating other job opportunities for others outside of the department.
Well, I think it's true, and some of the examples in that are in our solar incentive program, and as we ramp up in the future on depending upon what the board decides to do on a solar feed-in tariff and such, some of those things will be done by outside contractors. Occasionally, on some of the work we're doing in the reliability areas, we do some outside contracting on that as well.
Mr. Nichols, I have a question about slide that's on the screen right now. If I'm reading that correctly, the projection is that from fiscal year 11-12 to fiscal 12-13, we're going to have about a $60 million plus increase in pension costs that's going to hit the budget?
That's correct.
Okay. And then going from 11-12 to 13-14, it's about $100 million between the 2 years.
Between the 2 years,
Yeah.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So on our investment side with the pension accounts, are we going to be able to cover that, or is that going to be a net loss to the budget in those years?
Well, that's a great question, and what this assumes is that this is the dollars that we have to put into our budget to cover that difference above and beyond what is an assumed investment rate that we get on the invested funds in our retirement pension plan.
So in thinking about this year's budget, we have to be cognizant of the pension effect that's going to come in future budgets.
That's correct, and we account for that in our costs as we go forward on that. And again, for a crude term, this is kind of the hangover effect. This is the effect of of recovering that lost amount in our pension plans that happened when the market took such that big dive. And it's a 5-year, so that was started back in 2008. So you go through, it kind of takes you through 2013, 14, actually 2014 on a fiscal year basis. And so once we get to there, we've recovered. We've kind of gotten back and we've refilled the bucket in terms of what we lost, and we get our actual funds back to a more comfortable level of where they need to be to support our pension obligations. And then it flattens out.
But that assumes that you're going to get an 8% return on those invested dollars.
It's actually a 7.75% return. So to the extent that we get better performance on that, then we update that each year. And if our reinvestments fill that bucket up quicker because we got a higher than the 7.75% rate of return, the requirements of what we have to contribute into that will go down. So just in summary, on this, there's a city charter obligation that requires you as a board to adopt an annual receipts and appropriations budget. That doesn't go into this level of detail, and it lays out the water and power funds, and it shows receipts being revenues that come in, appropriations being the obligations that we spend on a cash-based budget. And this gets really confusing. So that's what we filed, and it was in May?
It was April, and it went in front of May, in front of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Right. And those are cash-based dollars. This here is an overall obligation budget, which is a little bit different than that. The department does a 5-year, minimum budget planning schedule, but you only have to approve one fiscal year at a time. So this specific budget, which goes into more detail than that revenues and appropriations that you filed, is something that you have to act on. And council then in turn has to act on. So there's no vote required for you today. You don't have a decision on this today. You have additional information behind you. Have additional information in the appendix here, but you will need to take action on this at the next meeting on the 21st. I'm not going to go through the appendix, but just so you know what's in it, I'll let Greg just give you literally what's in this other appendix package, just so you know what's there if you want to look at that in your leisure. And there are 2 slides in that I actually do want to bring to your attention.
Ron, just on the timing, for the transfer to take effect, it requires this board to approve the budget, or is that a standalone item?
The transfer to the city is a separate item.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Included in your package is a appendix that goes along with the actual budget presentation that gives you a little bit more detailed information than what you got in the presentation. And just to give you a brief overview, there's 7 appendixes that are included. The first one talks about our achievements for the fiscal year 10-11. The second one talks about our budget requirements, which gives you the 5-year overview of our budget. It gives you the revenue requirement and details such as that. You also have an Appendix 3. You get the water and power supply and demand, so you see small individual graphs of our load forecasts, our water demand forecasts, and some of our supply issues. Appendix 4 is our fuel and purchase power budget, because that is a significant part of our power budget, and it gives you a forecast over the next 5 years of our fuel and purchase power expenditures. Appendix 5 are the cost reduction plan that was put forth earlier this year. Appendix 6 has the historical city transfer amounts that we sent over to the city's general fund. And Appendix 7 gives you a detailed view of some of our key projects and programs that we have, such as the Castaic modernization, talks a little bit about mainline construction and those types of things. And then I'll turn it over to Ann to go over the actual budget.
Before we do that, do I have that on here?
Yes, you do.
Flip it. Can you flip it to page 13 real quick?
Yes, there we go.
this really isn't a budget issue, but I just can't help but bring this issue up because I think it's important. Our board members will recognize this from our discussions on Saturday. But I think it's important to give a view as we go into this rate consideration process and these workshops that we're going to be doing. And very simply, this shows our water budget. It shows just the total annual revenue requirement, or consider it as your overall in budget that we need to pay, and comprised of our capital funding amount, our purchased water, and then all of our O&M for water. And this is what our total costs are for the current fiscal year that ends this month. This is where if we take our current rates and multiply that by the amount of water that we deliver at those rates, this is where we're at. Thankfully, we're kind of like right there. And as you'll note, not exactly a lot of surplus. Going forward, this is what those costs are over the next 3 years that we're estimating. This is the one that we're talking about right now. Again, this is still this basic needs budget that we just talked about. And we've taken that same program and carried that forward and saying this is not everything that we think should be in there. But if we just continued and did nothing with our rates, took to the same demand numbers of water that we have in this appendix, this is the gap. This is a gap between what our costs are and what we're going to recover if we don't adjust our rates. That doesn't work. So as we go forward and start talking in the coming weeks in these public workshops, we're going to talk about that gap and what does it take to fill that gap on not only our basic rate levels, but for some of these programs that we haven't included in here, which we'll be talking about as well, that we think people might well want to have more in, and more reliability, more in energy and water conservation, et cetera. What is it going to take to rate adjustments to get there? So we're going to have a lot of discussion about that, again, not today, but later. And then similarly, this is the same type of picture for the power side. Again, this is this year, and here we have a gap. Why is that? Because we're not recovering all of our costs today in our budget, and it only gets worse in the years to come. Again, as a reminder, this is capital. Here we have a city transfer that we don't have in water. It's budgeted in there. This is our fuel. This is our purchase power, and this is our O&M. Again, this is all that basic needs budget that we just talked about. So we've got a gap. We'll be talking in more detail about what it takes to fill that gap and what it means to rates as we go forward.
And then for your review after the meeting, and if you have questions, you can direct them to Mr. Nichols, and we'll get you the information back. But you do have some sections in the binder on our annual budget memo that helps give guidance to each division as to what are our goals, what are we projecting. Then you have your summary of city transfers going back to 2005, so you can see the trend on that. The next tab is our cost reduction details by functional item, so you can see labor, travel costs, things like that where we've cut back. Our next slide is the fuel and purchase power budget, and this is actually dollars, so Commissioner Moss, if you wanted us to get details on the megawatt hours that support that, we could get you that.
Okay.
The next tab is our demand forecast for water, so you can see how much we expect to purchase, is it treated, untreated, and what's the dollar value of that. The next tab is our load forecast on the power system. This is what we're projecting. New construction, what's going to drive our demand, new construction, commercial buildings, things like that. The next tab is our staffing levels, and Commissioner Noonan, that actually shows by Assistant General Manager where we have staffing today and our projected reductions going forward. It's a plan, so it may change, but you can see what each one has in that. The next tab is our retirement costs, and that includes a letter from our actuary that helps us come up with our projections as far as what we should be planning for. The next tab is our power O&M budget, And that has 3 breakdowns. The first one is by category and functional item. And functions to the department are major functions that we have to do to keep the business going. Behind that is by category, functional item, and by budget job, which gives us a little bit more detail to plan. And then behind that is by category and cost element. And cost element is where you'll see your labor, your overtime, your benefits, your professional service dollars, your outside service contracts. So if you'd like more details, we could get that. And then there's 3 tabs following right behind that, very similar to Power O&M. We have Power Capital, Water O&M, and Water Capital. So all of those same worksheets are back there for your review and questions. The next tab is our public benefits. We're required to spend a certain dollar amount each year on programs for the public, and we have that detailed back there. And then the next tab is our preliminary documents. This is what we presented to the Budget and Finance Committee, to the city, and it has a sample of the receipts and appropriations budget. That's what you'll be seeing at the next board meeting for your approval. And then the last 2 tabs are our Power Financial Plan and our Water Financial Plan. Those are our summary sheets on a 5-year basis, so you can see how much we plan to sell, where we're spending in each category, and it also has our projected average rate customers, financial metrics, things like that.
Thank you.
If I may.
Please.
I understand this is a very touchy issue, but I cannot resist posing it. I understand that we do have union contracts in place, but just since we are focused on a 5-year budget, I would be interested in learning how competitive our union labor is to other constituents and municipalities. And also if perhaps the unions would be amenable in the next negotiation to having more flexibility with their roles. Because my understanding right now is many times on one job that could be handled by 2 people, there's, double that because there's strict restrictions to what they can and cannot do on a job, so.
We do have union contracts in place through approximately 2014. So you would like us to report back on the ability?
I think it's a key issue on the budget. We have to, I think, look into it at least.
Okay.
And a question on the revenue projections that are contained in some of these tabs. Are they based upon the current rates now, or are you factoring some increase in rates and revenue projections?
I'm sorry, with regard to those that
are in the tabs that we were just talking about, in the financial plans, and there's some revenue categories in there.
To be honest, I'd have to double check that, Ann, in terms of what.
Okay, we'll report back.
Okay.
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Just looking at the slide, though, that you've shown both here and at the other meeting shows that you projected a flat rate.
Right, and
scenario.
let's be clear, in those in those 2 slides I just showed, those bar charts are at current rates with no adjustments. So in order to hit that, in order to be financially where we need to be, covering our costs and being able to have sufficient financial reserves to be able to have our support appropriate credit rating, the number has to be higher than that.
Right, but of course, in evaluating the budget, I have to look at revenue as well as expenses, and I want to just understand what the assumptions are that are underlying the revenue projections.
Well, that's a good point, and that is what we're going to be going over in some detail in the public workshops, and Commissioner Holloman, I think this is something that's important. We need to think about is when we can have an opportunity to go over with our board which we'll be reviewing in the public workshops, so we can dig into that more.
Yeah, we are attempting to get a meeting together here in short order. Hopefully, maybe sometime next week. Hopefully, right.
And through that process, we'll be able to drill into that a lot better, make more of that comparison. Because that really the other half, the important other half of what's the revenues that you need to hit these expenses. I just gave a little teaser with regard to those two tables, but that is indeed what our whole summer of workshops and discussions is going to be about, exactly that.
I mean, if you just eyeball the charts, there's hundreds of millions of dollars missing over the next 4 years. So we'll have to talk seriously about that.
And Mr. Nichols, on the power side, it may actually be a conservative estimate. I know that just yesterday, the appellate judge reinstated the state's cap-and-trade system that may go into effect. I recognize that there's some contention of when it will go into effect, but it may go into effect in January of 2012. There may be 2 years of free allowances, but then beginning in 2014, if the department is still heavily reliant on coal, there could be additional costs that the utility would have to bear.
Certainly, if cap and trade gets implemented at some point, indeed, we'll be looking at higher costs associated with our existing coal. The amount of that and the timing of that is
open question.
It's kind of an open question at this point in time, but you know, the trend and the expectation that's going to happen is.
So the point I'm making is that given that scenario, the conjecture for 2014 may be conservative.
It could be.
When will this be available to the public, the presentation that you gave today?
We have copies of it sitting out front. We got about 25 copies of that. Well, I'll tell you there are a couple of changes that we made in the electronic version that are not in there. None of them material. They're just a couple of edit type items that. So when you look at the hard copies of those, there might be a few errant words here, and you know we're trying to do everything on a just-in-time basis here. So, but at the end of the day, it has all the information that we talked about. There's no erroneous data in those copies, and we will, I believe, have this online as well on our web for people to pull it down electronically.
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
Any more comments from commissioners? Questions?
Thank you. Sobering. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, we have public comment?
Yes, I have 4 public comment cards for number 5. The first speaker is Dr. Clyde Williams.
I'm glad we waited until after that. Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno. The usual issue for me, starting. $5 billion organization, where's the S plan? There's many references to strategies, strategic investments, strategic improvements, but we don't have a strategic plan. We have to take this for what it's worth. Okay. You're going to have to approve this on June the 21st, the budget, but that's before all of the meetings are held. So there's a question there within the presentation that was given. Okay, the other side. We are a city of 4 million people. We have over 1 million parcels. And yeah, it takes a lot of money. The real issue is, what do we get for the money? I estimate that, okay, it's a $5 billion budget. There's 4 million of us. Oh, it's going to cost around $1,300 per person for this year. Can we make these billions of dollars, which nobody really knows all of the numbers in here, especially given in a short period of time. But you do know how much it's going to cost you out of your pocket, because you get a bill every 2 months. But you can also equate it down to, okay, it's going to cost my family so many $1,000s this year. What do I get for it? I don't know. If we're going to change the water pipe replacement schedule, as it pointed out here in one of these, from roughly 300-year cycle to a 400-year cycle, because we can't afford it, that's called usually deferred maintenance. And is that a strategy of the DWP to defer the maintenance? I don't know. You get a 17% depreciation allowance on a pipeline replacement that's going to be replaced in 400 years. the economics, the financials, it's going to take 2 months just to figure out where it's going. But one of the things I see is that by giving so many numbers that nobody can relate to these without having a lot of experience in utility finance.
Could you wrap up your remarks, please?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up right now. You have to make it intelligible. It may be transparent, but you have to make it intelligible to the commissioners and to the public and to the ratepayers. And as one person said once, how can I explain this to any of my constituents if I can't even understand it? So make it transparent, make it understandable. Thank you.
The next speaker is Craig Kessler, and after that, Tony Wilkinson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice President, members of the board. My name is Craig Kessler. I serve as Director of Governmental Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. The 35 golf courses that are under LADWP jurisdiction have been working with your Water Conservation Unit for the last few years on trying to meet those 20% mandates by the year 2020, and I'm happy to report it's been a very cooperative relationship, and the savings have been considerably over 20% for all 35, and then the average has been over 30%. That is a good piece of news, and that's a great first step. One of the things that's extremely important, I may have jumped the gun a little bit on your public input process, but as you begin looking at the priorities within the budget, certainly recycled water hookups are another piece of that important conservation puzzle. I do know that there are a couple of important projects, one which has already begun, that extends to Hanson Dam Golf Course, which is owned by the city, onto that enormous city recreational center, huge recreational park, and then up north to get some other rather large turf plots, and the Southern Griffith Park, which is finished with the planning and there is funding. And I understand that those are potentially under suspension depending upon how your public input process goes, and ultimately that what goes into the final budget on top of the bare bones budget that we heard presented today. In the longer term, it's important to keep the energy or some of the enthusiasm up for continuing those particular hookups beyond the core of the Griffith Park and the Tillman plant. And as a final point, and in my remarks to you here today, there is some concern within the golf industry, particularly in the West Valley, to the extent that you're considering hookups or partnerships with Las Virgenes Water District in Ventura County, recycled water comes in all different quality levels. It just so happens that the Tillman plant is just about the best around. So I would simply put in a brief that it would be far preferable to in your strategic planning to consider extensions to Tillman, whether that's a secondary plant or whether that's the purple piping, and probably forego some of those discussions with Las Virgenes. Thank you. I wish you the best of luck in the public input process, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Tony Wilkinson.
Hi, Tony Wilkinson, the chair of the Neighborhood Council Department of Water and Power Memorandum of Understanding Oversight Committee. Under General Manager Nichols, there's been just a tremendous sea change in the amount of information and the way it's presented to the public about the department finances and about the hard choices that through some of the political strife of the last year sometimes got buried. I think that while there's a lot of information here, it is being presented in about as clear a way as I could imagine doing it, with a base case which is represented by this budget. But still, all those question marks, as Commissioner Holman mentioned, hundreds of millions of dollars that are uncovered. As Commissioner Parker has mentioned, at least 2 times in 2010, we met our 2010 our 20% obligation for green power basically with the credit card. It's unfunded. There are many things that are worthwhile putting on the credit card. There are energy efficiency and water conservation that are multi-year, but to put annual green power on the credit card is really not appropriate for a budget, and the budget before you does this. So I'm really looking forward to the presentations that are scheduled in a timely way so that quickly the input, while the decision is being made, can be rendered. But I'm also concerned that this process, which ends up having a rate proposal back to you to cover this budget by maybe August 2nd, which is only 2 months. And the MOU asked for a minimum of 90 days. And one of the things I'm really concerned about is what Mr. Nichols said, that the ability of the public to digest this. I think that the numbers are there, but I would really urge that perhaps later in this period, maybe late July, we have some more public sessions, because it's really important that the public understand what the department is doing here and feels that there's an adequate opportunity to weigh in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Candido Morez, and after that, Evan Gillespie.
Commissioners, before I get into the budget, I just want to express the thank yous from last month. There were some landscaping people that rent property from you folks. They were here and they were treated very graciously, and they wanted me to let you know that they were very grateful for the way they were treated, and that you listened to them, and then hopefully that there'll be some good results out of their renting the properties from you. But in going over this budget, I always look at contracts. I focused in on contracts, and when you look across this land from the east to the west, north, south, reduction in cost has taken place. I don't care where you go, cost has been reduced. If I work with the community courts in Van Nuys, and when I hear the attorneys talking about how they have to lower their fees, and when I see service contracts that we're awarding, and I don't see decreases in that, I see increases in that, I just don't understand that. When we spend $1.7 billion in materials and other items, and we're not doing any reduction there, what is wrong? The Department of Water and Power is the golden goose. You control everything. You have the power, and yet we're allowing these contracts to continue. Rather than having increases, we should have decreases. We should be saving anywhere from $100 to $200 million in procurement and other service contracts, but we're not. So I hope that we can really take a look at that, and I hope Mr. Nichols on the 15th in Van Nuys that we do have a great turnout, that people come out to express their feelings so that we can really take a look at this budget. But again, I agree with my fellow neighborhood councilman that the transparency that you brought to this department is outstanding. And I normally don't like to talk about staffing, but when I see that 600 jobs are going to be lost, I don't want to see one job lost. I think each and every one of those jobs is important. My question is that where are we going to take those jobs, and who are we going to take them from? Are we going to take it from the low pole, bottom, where people are just trying to survive and feed their families, or are we going to take it from the top? At one time, there was only 2 assistant general managers. Today, we have how many? We could have not filled the position on this table just recently, but we did. Why? Was it necessary? Could those responsibilities have been sent to someone else, given to another department? Those are just questions we need to ask, and hopefully we'll get answers to that. So, again, we look forward to the process.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Evan Gillespie.
Hi, good afternoon. Evan Gillespie. I work with the Sierra Club here in Los Angeles. First off, thanks, Mr. Nichols, for the excellent presentation. And I agree with the previous speaker. Said the level of detail has gotten a lot better, and appreciate all of the thoroughness of your presentation today. Also appreciate the board's time on Saturday, hearing all the public comments, your patience, and kind of hearing what the public wants or expects out of the process that we're about to see unfold. 2 quick points. One, to energy efficiency. I really appreciated Mr. Nichols' comments, recognizing the fact that a 0.5% target or budget to fund 0.5% energy savings every year for the next several years is just insufficient. It doesn't fit with what other utilities around this country and even around the state are doing. A lot of utilities now are looking at at least 1 to 1.5 or 2% annual energy efficiency savings. And if we're really going to look at ways to protect customers, to bring down customer bills, and to really start to reinvest in Los Angeles, we need to really ramp up the funding and the targets for energy efficiency. Back to Saturday for a second. Board heard a lot of comments from the public about the need to move away from coal-fired power by 2020. And thinking about Mr. Nichols' comment today about just identifying what's driving costs of the utility and where we can actually help protect customers in the long run, I wanted to add on to just highlight one quick example of where we see the cost of coal getting much more expensive and where we think that with a smart transition away from coal, we might actually be able to save customers some money. So 2 weeks ago, the owners of Navajo Generating Station went down to Washington, D.C. and had a hearing, in fact, to lobby Congress to actually get out of a rule that would have asked Navajo Generating Station owners to install pollution controls to bring down smog pollution or ozone at the plant. That plant is ranked as high as third in the country in terms of ozone pollution. It's one of the dirtiest coal plants in the country. So when folks go out to the Grand Canyon to take in the view there, oftentimes you can't quite see it. It's also, unfortunately, making people sick, actually killing people out on the Navajo reservation. And so I wanted to be helpful to get clarification to understand where the Department of Water and Power was in that effort. Were they a part of the lobbying to undermine the EPA and their efforts to move forward with strong rules to protect public health? Secondarily, their argument was that it's going to cost $1.1 billion to clean up that plant. Now, we think that's an inflated cost, but still highlights the point that installing pollution controls to do the right thing to protect public health is going to cost owners of that plant, including Department of Water and Power and the public here, a lot of money. And it would be a wise investment to at least look at how we can move away from that coal plant, how we can move away from our Intermountain Power Plant as a way to save people money. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, that was the last card for number 5.
Okay, what I'd like to do is get through the consent calendar, and then we'll take a 15-minute break. So a couple of things we need to do. One, item 15 needs some more work done, so the chair would entertain a motion from a commissioner to defer item 15 to a following meeting.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's unanimous. So item 15 is deferred. As far as consent goes, I believe we're pulling 8, 9, 10, 16, 21, 22, 25, 26, and 38.
Yes.
Right?
Mr. Chairman, I'm asking that we also pull 11, 12, and 24.
11, 12, and 24.
Yeah, and, Mr. Chairman, I had also asked that we pull 27.
I think
27
27
is not on the consent calendar.
Yeah.
Ah, okay, then now to go.
11, 12.
Okay.
So which item is left?
Exactly. So we have left are 6, 7, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23.
Yes, that's what I have too.
That's it, right?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a correction to item 6 to the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay.
Can we entertain that now?
I would love to.
All right. Under item 3, where it cites a request for presentations or comments from the commission, it reads currently, Commissioner Parfrey provide a report regarding Bill's study on the federal funding information. I want to clarify what my request was at that previous meeting. It was to obtain a report on the department study for on-bill pay, which was part of our ARA funding package that the department received. So it has to do with on-bill pay and not specifically with all federal funding projects.
I'll entertain a motion for approval on 6 with that correction.
So moved.
And also with the illumination of the fact that there are some outstanding items that staff owes us relative to that, to those minutes.
So moved.
Thank you.
And seconded.
Great. All approved?
Aye.
That is approved. 6 is approved. So that moves us through the additional items that I labeled for consent. Barbara, do you have those? Do I need to-
7, 13, 14, 17 through 20, and 23 left on the consent.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the consent calendar is now approved unanimously. We're going to take a 15-minute break, so we'll be back at about 20 till 2 to do the additional items. Thank you.
a good gamble.
We're recording? We're recording. Good afternoon. In the absence of our Vice President, Mr. Holloman, we still do have a quorum for continuing the meeting of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners of June 7th. I'm Commissioner Parfrey, and I've been asked by Commissioner Holloman to take over in his absence in chairing the meeting. And we still have a quorum, so can we have attendance called again, please?
Okay, we have Commissioners Parfrey, Noonan, and Moss.
Thank you. And Barbara, the next agenda item, please.
We are now on items, I have a speaker card for items 8, 9, and 10. Did you want to speak all at the same time on those, Mr.
And who is the speaker,
Mr.
please?
Morez?
I'm sorry?
Was Mr. Morez was the speaker.
Candido Moret?
Maybe he.
He's in the room.
Maybe he left.
Lonnie, we thought you were Candido.
Okay, yeah, we had pulled those from the consent agenda because he had a speaker card in for items 8, 9, and 10.
All right, Mr. Morez is not in the room, and so is there an objection for us to move on items 8, 9, and 10? Can I ask the commissioners if they would like to approve these items, 8, 9, and 10?
So moved.
Second.
Objections? Abstentions? Hearing none. Items carry. Barbara, next agenda item, please.
Okay, then we would move on to item number 11.
Item number 11.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was the one that...
Item number...
We approved item 10.
Yep. So we're
On item
number-
11, I'm the one who asked to pull this item, but in consideration of the long agenda today and having discussed this matter with the Assistant General Manager of the Power System, I am confident that this is a good item to approve. So at this point, I would like to ask if any commissioner would like to move this item.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, item carries. Next item, please.
That would be item number 12.
Item 12. Are there speakers, or is this an
No,
item?
someone asked for it to be pulled.
Oh, that would be me.
I can give you a brief explanation.
And Mr. Benjamin, could you please explain item 12, please?
This is, we're requesting to amend the section of the contract that allows us to pay the contractor as the material and the performance has been met, rather than doing an estimate on the payments. So this is no impact on cost and schedule. It is just a clarification that the payments will be made as the progress is made and material has been installed and certified by the contractor for us to pay them.
Could you provide the audience with some context of the work that's being done
Yes.
at Castaic, please? It's a substantial improvement that is being
It is.
made there.
As Mr. Nichols mentioned, Castaic being part of our strategic plan, to modernize it, not only we're modernizing the machinery that we have there, the 6 units that we have, to make sure we restore the original megawatt nameplate data on the performance of these units. We also are installing a unified control system that ties all 6 units together. Since the power plant is about 30-plus years old, we've done some modernization on unit 2 and 6 by a supplier. And now that we've almost done with all 6 units, we are going through and making sure all 6 units are unified as far as the control system and also all the flexibility that we need to have in the power plant for us to integrate renewables. So this is a major advancement that we need to put on top of the modernization of the machines that we're going through for us to operate the system efficiently.
Thank you.
Move for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. Thank you. Next item, please.
Now we are on to item number 16.
Item 16.
I requested that item 16 be pulled, And as much as I appreciate fitness, I've seen firsthand within my company, as well as other companies that I've represented, that there's been a lot of concessions that have been sacrificed in corporations because the economy is so bad. In fact, at one time, you could open up our refrigerators at my firm and find all these sodas. Now they don't even offer us sodas anymore. So, I mean, there's been some drastic cuts.
You work in a sweatshop.
So with that said, I'd like to understand how many other municipalities offer this concession to their employees, and whether or not this positively affects insurance rates. I'd like to have some more background to it.
Who is presenting, please?
Hi, Caroline McKnight. I'm the Manager of Employee Health and Benefits in Human Resources, and this contract is under my area. And I have Amy Willard on my staff, who's the contract administrator for this contract. We don't, at this time, have statistics on other municipalities, but we can find that out. We do have some information about the benefits that having a fitness-type center offer and the reduction of costs. We did explore some studies that are out there regarding the benefits, and some things that I can just quickly quote and then follow up if you have other questions. As far as obesity, U.S. private employers have a cost of about $45 billion annually in medical expenditures and work loss. The health care costs for obese workers cost 36% more than for normal weight workers. And in particular, for the benefits of something like a fitness center, it reduces the employee health risks, and it reduces absenteeism. So we feel that it is a benefit, although we don't have the specific cost to quote related to our reduction in health care costs, but we do think it helps reduce our absenteeism and keep our employees healthier.
Well, I have some questions on this item as well.
Please.
I'm reading the board letter correctly. The contract expired in May of this year.
Yes.
So my first question is, why are you only asking for a 6-month extension as opposed to a brand new contract?
We needed a little more time to complete the competitive selection process, which we put out an RFP. It closed today at 1 o'clock today. We have 3 new bidders for a new contract, and we just need a little more time to go through the process of entering into a new agreement following the competitive selection process, which the bids were due back today. And we have 3 bidders.
Is there a reason why the RFP was so delayed in going out?
We had some issues in getting the RFP out timely, and part of that was on our end in Human Resources and part of it on working closely with supply chain. And we have resolved those issues, and we're moving forward now. The RFP is out and closed, so we just needed a little more time. We had some delays that we've now resolved.
Okay. Well, I just have to say, as you know, a new commissioner, I don't approve contracts after they've expired in process. I mean, that's not the way to do business. This was a contract for term. You had plenty of advance notice that it was going to expire at a certain point in time. You got to get your RFPs out further, and I'm not going to support extending the contract at this time.
Commissioner Noonan?
I just feel, given the sacrifices that we have to make towards renewable energy, forecasting, firing 600 people, I, in good conscience, cannot support this request either. And I would hope that people would take personal responsibility to take care of their health. And if this is going to increase absenteeism, if it's going to increase the absences of some employees, maybe those are the employees that we should consider firing if we have to fire any. So I think, given the dire times, people do need to make sacrifices, and I think that people can take care of their health, and that this isn't something that the ratepayers should be paying for at this time.
So I would propose a motion that this extension be denied.
All right. Well, at this point, it appears that we simply do not have the sufficient votes for this item to carry. And so we are simply not going to approve this item because it doesn't have the sufficient votes. So item number 16 has been rejected.
Well, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
The Aquila has been continuing to provide services?
Yes, they have.
Is there a holdover clause or an automatic extension in their contract?
No. And if I could add, we began the process over a year ago. We began in a timely manner to begin the contract and RFP process. We did everything within our power to get the RFP out in a timely manner. And we actually tried to get this on the second meeting in May, the board meeting, but it was canceled. And that would have allowed us to have, if it was approved, to have the amendment in place prior to the expiration of the contract. So we did, try everything within our power to get this done in time.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and it's unfortunate that the meeting was postponed. But I just want to echo something that President Sales said, which was that it's up to the contracting units to make sure that there is plenty of time prior to bringing something before the commission. And the fact that if it comes up to the last minute and something happens and you're not able to get it approved in time, that's not going to be our problem. So I just want to, reiterate what President Sales said.
May I add one more thing?
Please.
I'm also open to having you have a dialogue with this vendor explaining the kind of budget cuts that we're making and the sacrifices that we are making. And perhaps they may want to discount what they're charging us. And I would be amenable to subsidize memberships to those employees that want to take on the majority of the cost themselves because they feel like it's an asset to their life. But to, just underwrite the entire thing at an increase, I just don't think that that's feasible or viable at this time.
Okay, so I understand you're not approving this extension of this agreement. We did just close with the RFP, though, for this service, so you're also saying that you do not want us to go forward with continuing to offer this or to look more closely at the rates and the subsidized rates?
Please.
I think there are two other commissioners who are not present, and so what's clear is that this item is going to fail before this body, but I would say that you should take to heart the comments by these commission members before you bring back an additional item for our approval. But that is not to say that it would automatically be denied.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Is that faithful to your comments?
It is.
All right, thank you. All right.
Okay,
next
thank you.
item, please.
We're on to items number 21 and 22, which I do have a speaker card for both those items together. The speaker is Marcus Castaigne.
It's Marcus Castaigne with us this afternoon. I do not see him, and so at this point I would like to entertain a motion for items 21 and 22.
So moved.
Second.
There is a second. Hearing no abstentions or objections, the items carry. Next item, please.
Okay, the next item would be item number 24.
Item 24. And that would be, I would like a report, please, on item number 24.
Item 24, Ann Santilli, is to have the board change our accounting treatment on the way we account for our energy efficiency programs. This current fiscal year and in prior years, we would expense all of the items the cost that we would spend on energy efficiency. And after looking at this program in more detail, there are costs that have a long-term benefit, 15 years or greater. And what we'd like to do is to be able to capitalize those costs and only charge customers the amount that we need to finance to bring these programs into our capital budget.
I'm curious how many other utilities amortize or capitalize these energy efficiency programs.
I don't have that information at hand, but when General Manager Nichols started, that was one of the challenges he gave us as part of our capital efficiency. We talked to our bond counsel, we talked to our auditors, and they were both comfortable.
And they were comfortable?
They were comfortable, and we can even use tax-exempt financing.
And is 15-year amortization standard?
That is something that we feel is, we can monitor that. I think that, it does show it has a long-term value.
Well, I pulled this item, and I just want to, again, call it out because I think it's a very wise way of proceeding, and I just want to thank the department for thinking outside the box and making this happen. So I would like to move to approve this item. Oh,
Well, I do have a question, Ms. Santilli. I also think it's a really good strategy, but I do want to drill down a little bit further. If we were to do this as an overall strategy, would it reduce our borrowing capacity at DWB?
To the extent, yes. I mean, what we do is we have a capitalization ratio. We try to have no more than 60% of our assets financed. So as we approach that ceiling, then this is something we may push back on, but we do have the ability right now, and it's programs that customers are interested in, so that's why we think it makes sense.
Okay. With respect to item 24, is the financing, are you anticipating doing variable rate financing or fixed rate financing?
Fixed rate financing, those bonds have not been approved yet, but we did let the public know we have an official intent to reimburse us once we have those bonds in place.
I see. And do they fully amortize over the 15-year period, or is there some sort of balloon payment?
It would be fully amortized. Usually we issue bonds over 30 years, and there's variable tranches, and we would match the 15-year tranche to these payments.
Great. Thank you.
So I would like to approve this item. I am moving to approve. Is there a second?
Second?
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. Next item, please, Barbara.
Item number 25.
I believe I was the one that pulled this, and I also would like to get a report on this item. In particular, I'd like to know what EOS has done so far and what the reason is for the amendment.
Sure. Commissioners, Kelly Bernard, Director of Economic Development. EOS has been working with the department for about a year, and it's really on our clean tech strategy for the department. Economic Development has gone through a review of all of our programs and wanting to be more aligned with the operations of the department, and so moving in a direction of how the department can support the clean tech ecosystem of LA. Was a critical piece of that. And so EOS, along with, at the time, PB America, was working on us to develop that. PB America is no longer working with us for a number of reasons. And so EOS has really stepped up and provided that kind of industry expertise in providing that. So we have, together with EOS, come up with a series of recommendations for how the department can move forward on better supporting clean tech, partnering with Clean Tech LA and some other partners throughout the region to do that. And we need their continued services so that we can go ahead and launch and move forward on some of those recommendations.
Okay. Typically, have there been any deliverables to date from EOS to the department to sort of demonstrate what they've done for the department?
Yes, we recently provided a report of how to move forward and the draft recommendations to the general manager for his review. So that's under consideration now.
And so that played a role that you've gone to sort of completed one phase and now you're ready to move into the second phase? Okay. That's fine.
Commissioner, if I could amplify on this a bit. We have pretty significantly cut back our economic development funding as part of our overall budget looks, and Kelly and I have been working together to say how can we do more with less. This is one of those areas where we believe we can do that. I've been impressed with what I've seen with what EOS came together with. They've laid out some things that we will be bringing before this board here in the not too distant future. A few other things on our plate right now, but we need to work through on taking that kind of to the next level. And part of getting EOS on board here is to drill down and get it a little bit more actionable, because they provided us kind of a smorgasbord approach, which is what we had asked for. And given as much as we've cut a number of other items, this is one that I think has legs and has some benefits to move forward on, and I therefore I endorse us going forward on it. Your questions are good ones. I believe they've demonstrated themselves well. They were a sub to a prior firm, and it's clear that they were, I think, the engine in what we were getting with regard to that prior work.
Good. Okay. Well, I will certainly support this.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
A second?
There is a second. Hearing no objections or abstentions, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item number 26.
And I think I was asked to have this one pulled as well. And it's a similar set of questions. What has been done so far, and why are we amending this contract?
So I'll answer that for you, and if you have additional information, we have some of the staff from Energy Efficiency. This is the firm that did the study for the department for the potential study. It's something that was referenced on Saturday and something we'll bring to the board in August. The potential study looks at the potential in Los Angeles, looks at our customer profile, looks at the programs that we're currently managing, and gives us some recommendations on what we can do in the future for energy efficiency savings. Because the budget has been somewhat back and forth for energy efficiency over the last 12 months, it didn't seem prudent to bring the potential study without some relativity in the budget. So today we have preliminary numbers on the budget around the energy efficiency program and some shifts, as you've seen, for financing, for capitalization, and then we'll bring the study to you within about 6 weeks. The second phase of this for global energy is outside of the scope of what was required in the potential study. As we met as a cross-functional team with Mr. Benjamin's staff who look at planning and procurement and the integrated resource plan and look at other complementary programs that might be developed, including demand response and what we can do and how we compare to other utilities in California. So looking outside of the city of Los Angeles and trying to learn to see what others have done in the investor and utility service territory, and comparing it to what we could possibly do outside of energy efficiency for complementary and demand response. So as we go through this process, they're familiar with us. There's a learning curve that won't have to be repeated. We should look at the next phase of this process and perhaps hand over some work product for new program designs with the power system planning team. The other piece of this that's important is for something that Commissioner Parfrey asked earlier at the last board meeting, is the on-bill financing. And that's included in this area too. There's ARRA money to fund that. And because they're familiar with it, because it's the same subject matter area, it made sense to amend this contract and get a work product on the on-bill financing and spend down the federal grant for on-bill financing for energy efficiency for our customers.
All right, thank you.
Further comments from the Commission? I'm very much looking forward to the potential study. I want to see what it has to say. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the motion carries. Next item, please.
We did have 38 on the consent agenda, but it was pulled by someone to give I think it was...
Item 38. One of the commissioners want to address item 38.
And I did have a card.
Can you call the speaker, please?
Dr. Clyde Williams.
It's Dr. Clyde Williams in the House. I do not see him.
Okay.
And so is there a commissioner who wishes to ask questions about item 38 or simply ask the department to make a presentation?
I'll go for the latter.
All right. Commissioner Moss is requesting a presentation on item 38, which is the amendment to an existing contract dealing with our ARRA weatherization service programs.
So this is a pretty short I'll keep it short. This is a good step forward for us. We're excited about it as a team. We have a contract before you that we're asking to amend to allow us to receive another approximately $4 million from air grant money through the state of California. We had a weatherization program that we launched last year. It was a unique program in the state of California, and it's something that we designed in-house with the department, and it was a combined effort between the power system staff and the energy efficiency staff. It took us some time to tailor our program to fit under the federal grant guidelines, and we are up and running and enthusiastic about it. The state has been extremely flexible with us in allowing us to pursue a program design that's unique and isn't similar to what's in the rest of the state. They are pleased with some of the progress to date and looking forward to partnering with us going forward. We are using with this new program, it's a vertical program, which we haven't tried in a long time in the department under energy efficiency. And it's a program that we're starting to see success with. It serves some of the neediest customers. It's targeted at low income. We put out over 1,000 inquiries across the city in every council district, and we're working through the customers to continue with the whole house weatherization. We're using our new temporary utility pre-craft trainee. I'm going to let Aaron talk about in a minute the pipeline component to this, and we're enthusiastic about that. This pilot also gives us some learning around the vertical process for the nonprofit. This weatherization is an AIR program, and it's a grant-funded program. We also have another grant, an AIR grant to service nonprofit customers, and we're using the same model. We've worked a lot of the kinks out, so the start of the second program is much more efficient. And I'm going to ask Aaron to talk a little bit about the UPCT and the new program.
So this board approved the DDR, the requirements of creating a class called Utility Pre-Craft Trainees, and this class of trainees are called exempt because they are not yet a part of our civil service process. But the idea is to engage with the communities, to recruit from the communities, our ratepayers, and also bring the utility pre-craft helper class, which was designed for an 18-month period as a training class. The idea is not to create these jobs and also have a dead end once these weatherization and also some of these programs come to an end. The idea is to have this class as a feeder class to all our training programs, the linemen, the splicers, and instrument techs, and the electrical mechanics series, where we can train them as they are learning on the job, and also mentor them for them to go into the training programs and spend the 3-year additional time for them to take a leap from the entry level to our journey level classes, which is an area of shortages that we've been having, filling those positions, recruiting, retaining, and training workforce that will stay with us for many, many years and engage in the programs that we have ahead of us for power reliability, modernization, wind farm management, solar installations, and all those things that we've been talking about. So we see this as a complete package of recruiting, training, and retaining workforce while we're doing efficiency and weatherization programs at the same time.
How long will the weatherization program last for as a pilot program?
It will last to the end of next year.
And what is the number of homes, residences that you think the pilot project will be able to cover?
I think I'm looking at Lucia. I think we will get up to, at the end of the program,
Lucia overlay, about 2,500 by the end of March 2012.
And then is the idea, if it's a successful program, to then try and phase it in on a more permanent basis?
Exactly. Phase it in not only with low-income residential. The grant allows us to look at other communities, customers with special needs, maybe the elderly community, the disabled community. It also allows us to work in the nonprofit area, and it helps feed the dialogue in the summer, frankly. And I was telling Aram just before we started the board meeting, this is a model that we really pushed last year, and there was a lot of resistance at the state level, just as far as qualification for the grant and expenditures on the program. In the last 3 weeks, they looked at the model more closely, and they understood the benefits to having a vertical model. And some of the PUC staff, the Public Utilities Commission staff, is looking at it as a potential model for the investor-owned utilities. And so that's exciting, because we started with some struggles, and now we may be potentially leading the state in this area. I do want to give credit to Lucia. It has been a long, difficult year to fit within the AIR grant framework, and to Mike Koya and a lot of the folks in Mike Koya's organization to execute on this, because they're really starting to click.
Well, it sounds like you put in a lot of hard work, and I wish you the best of luck on the program.
Yeah, it was a joint effort, and it's nice to start seeing some successes.
A lot of the models, the commissioners, on this employment issue of creating jobs and just containing it within that, to us doesn't work, because it has a start and a finish, and hiring a lot of workers that do the same thing over and over again for 18 months, that's not a good way for us to create jobs. I think the second layer that we talked about is mentoring them and showing them, as an option for being trained to move on to the other classes is the right way of bringing green jobs and also mentoring them to move up to other classes.
I do want to mention, Commissioner Noonan, you asked about some of the competitiveness. The UPCT is a union category that was recently created, and it's an entry level. If you dive into this package that you have, it shows you in some of the Davis-Bacon tables some of the different pay rates, and the UPCT is very competitive with the tables in here. And if offline, if you want to look at it, we can share that to you.
Okay.
And may I ask, how does our weatherization program align with Southern California Gas Company's weatherization program?
Well, we have put quite a bit of time and energy, Mr. Gaxetter's probably here too, to coordinate with the gas company. Their expenditure deadlines are different. They're a year later than ours. So we had to get a move on it. And we do coordinate and reach out with the gas company, but this is a program where we have June 2011 expenditure deadlines at 50%, and we were eager to get the program started. So there's some level of coordination, but it's my preference that we meet our deadlines and we get the program going rather than wait and make the coordination the priority. And this was brought to you as a supplemental because we just received word at the end of May, so not that long, a few days ago, that we were awarded the additional almost $4 million, but we would have to have the amendment in place by the end of June. So it was quickly prepared and presented to you so we could stay nimble and get the money and keep the program going by Lucia and Mike Koya.
Additional questions?
No, let's approve this quickly.
All in favor of accepting $3.8 million?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so no, let's do it more formally. Is there a motion to approve the
So
item?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. Next item, please.
The next item is item number 27.
If I may, Commissioner, give you a background on this package, on what it is. This is one of the parts that we want to bring to you as a strategy to develop and transmit energy from the Salton Sea area. And just an overview of what that area is east of San Diego and just a little bit north of El Centro by the Mexican border is where the resources that we've been talking about as far as the geothermal and solar exists in that area. This board has approved a package for us to collaborate with the IID, the Imperial Irrigation District's land that they control in that area. It's right south of the Salton Sea area is where the resources are and where we combined our land with the IID land. And there are also a lot of developers in that area that have plans in place for developing several of these geothermal and solar projects in this area. The idea of bringing energy from this area to LA territory, just to give you an idea on the electric system in California, there's 5 balancing authority. Basically, they're the equivalent of the air traffic control areas. So there's 5 of them in California. One of them is the Imperial Irrigation District. The other big one is the CAISO, the California Independent System Operator, and LADWP being one of the biggest municipality that has its own control area. And then SMUD is its own control area up north, and then there's Turlock. So just to put it in context of how what this package is asking the board to do is to get power from this area to our territory. Just the tip of this transmission system is Palm Springs and the Devers, called the Devers Station. For us to bring the energy from the development areas to that point, it has a restriction which we're bringing to the board for approval, and it's the PAT 42. The stretch between this point and somewhere around Palm Springs on the Devers area is basically a 1-lane highway compared to what we have from the area coming to this point. This is about a 6-lane highway. So we can get the energy from this point to Coachella Valley but from the Coachella Valley to Devers is where the restrictions is. And this is a combined ownership of IID control area and the CAISO control area. From this point, from Coachella to Ramon Station is an IID territory, and then from Ramon to Devers is part of the CAISO system. So between the CAISO control area and IID area, they came up with a project called Path 42 Upgrade. And what it is an upgrade of the existing transmission line as is, so they're not building a new transmission line, so it's environmentally safe for us to do. This is similar to our STS upgrade, so this is a wire change out and basically upgrading 600 megawatts nameplate to about 1450. So that gives us more capacity to transfer energy from that area. What this board has approved is for us to enter into an open season. Basically what IID says is that we are inviting interested parties to come and sign up for upgrading this stretch of the highway to get from this point to this point. And for that, you will get a reserved right on that line, which is 100 megawatts that we're asking for. As far as the application we've gone through, as the board has approved, we've gone through the application process. We are in the queue to secure 100 megawatts of transmission capacity from that area. In your package, there's a schedule of payment that we're asking this board to approve, and I'll just briefly go over what those mean. So the first payment of $2.5 million that we're asking to do is between now and May of 2013. We're going to make 4 installments to come up to the $2.5 million. What this does is basically prepays the right to transmit energy on that line and prepay the fees that we otherwise would have paid if we had gone on the market and got that 100 megawatts of transport capacity from that point to Devers. So we are paying $2.5 million upfront in order to aid in construction of that project, and for that we get a prepayment amount credit of $2.5 million for us to get this energy transferred. The second year and the third year, we will pay another $5 million as a prepayment to secure 3 full years of capacity rights that we secure in there. After the third year, so just fast forward when this line becomes in service is 2014. So from 2014, 2016, 2015, 2016, and 2017, we have pretty much prepaid our rights to transmit 100 megawatts. The question is, what happens if those projects that we contemplate developing in those areas don't come through? And the supply and demand in those areas, we have so many projects that are waiting in the queue to transmit power from that area that we think that we can sub and rent that capacity rights that we have and to make up the prepayment that we've done. So we think it's a good risk to take, and we feel very confident that we will have projects in that area because it's part of our RPS goals is to develop some geothermal in that area for 24/7 operations, and that's part of our strategy to do that. But this authorization is for us to enter into this agreement and ask the board to authorize us to make the first payment of $2.5 million and then do the subsequent payment and come up to $7.6 million to secure that 100 megawatts of capacity.
Hiram, I have a couple questions. If, let's say we were to buy that 100 megawatts on the open market, what would be the cost comparison?
So just the cost comparison, right now, because IID is a separate control area, they have their own tariffs other than the CAISO tariff. So there's a lot of add-ons that they would either have or not have compared to CAISO system. Our blended cost right now is $2.64 per megawatt hour to transmit on the IID territory.
Mm-hmm.
So we come from this point to this point with spending $2.64 per megawatt hour. From this point into the CAISO system, CAISO is very expensive because they have congestion pricing and other pricing add-ons that we would add to it. So depending on where we deliver the energy from this point, from Devers, either we go to Sylmar, where it enters our territory, or we can go from Devers to our Victorville. From Victorville, we bring it on to the eastern transmission line coming back to the city, depending on which route we pick, will be somewhere around $10.5 per megawatt hour. So the combined total cost for us will be 10 plus 2.5. It will be about 1.2 cents additional transport costs that we would inquire to bring energy from that area to LA. Our cost, our own transmission cost, because we have 27,000 miles of transmission line that enters into different states, and those capital costs, our transmission average is below CAISO, but still not as good of a price as IID.
So it strikes me that maybe 100 megawatts isn't enough. Is there additional capacity on those lines available to DWP?
We could enter into, there are other people that are interested like we are, and they're secured capacity on that line. We have to enter into separate agreements to add on top of the 100 megawatts that we have.
Is SCAPA interested in this?
This is going to be a SCAPA project, because the development that we have in that area is going to be more of a SCAPA development, and depending on how the composition of these projects go, we will rearrange the capacity for us to bring the energy home for the other SCAPA members.
Because I know we were contemplating at one point Nyland facility that was at 250 megawatts, and so right now
50.
I'm sorry?
50 megawatts.
50.
Yeah.
But now we're contemplating 100.
We do have additional capacity, as I was telling Commissioner Moss. We do have some additional capacity of restacking our current load on our transmission line, and we could squeeze another 50 or so megawatts. But for the amount of money and an amount of risks and everything else that we have in place, I think we came up with the 100 megawatts as a start for us to enter into this agreement and develop the area, see how things are going, and then maybe add another phase to it.
Do the commissioners have any questions?
Yeah, I do. What do you guess is the overall potential of the geothermal production down there?
It's a huge resource that's been sitting there for many years, and transmission, it's always been the bottleneck to get out of that area. And our projections are, as we get the line built, the development will accelerate to meet the deadlines for the in-service date for the transmission line.
So just to kind of summarize, the risk is we commit to spending $7 million and the generation doesn't materialize, in which case?
The risk?
Yeah.
The risk is, the worst case scenario would be that everything goes dry and we have $7 million at risk. Based on everything that we know and the capacity and the demand in that area, that we don't think that's a realistic assessment of what would happen. I think we're more likely to have more generations sitting and waiting for transmission than the other way around.
Okay. And then, given that this is budget season, the $2.5 million or so that we're committing to right away, is that factored into the basic budget that you presented this morning?
It is.
Okay.
If I could add a little more color on this. Aram and the power system, I've had a number of discussions on this, asking many of these same questions about saying, well, there's an element of risk on this. That's not an unusual circumstance. When you develop transmission that's outside your service territory and in an area that is not, transmission doesn't get built. You don't build generally excess transmission. So transmission gets built in and around concurrent plans to build power plants. Most systems that we have today that are in effect are built around big power plants, big nuclear plants, big coal plants, big combined cycle plants. The renewable business deals with smaller, which is a good thing, smaller increments that you can deal with. And as a result, that's one of the things that's been kind of a challenge with the whole Salton Sea area over literally decades, is that it has to get built out in little pieces. But yet you tend to build a big new transmission line, and it takes, typically 1,500 or so megawatts to fill it up. The beauty of this plan here is that there's a relatively minor upgrade that can get done, of which we're taking about a quarter of, if I'm correct, would be taking about a quarter of that. 100 megawatts, probably matches something like 2 geothermal plants down there, or portions of 2, maybe 1.5, depending upon the size of those plants. So the size that we're asking for, I think, is the right size. The fact is there are a number of different geothermal plants that we have been tracking. There's some other geothermal development efforts that we're funding and pursuing along with SCAPA. And at the end of the day, the size that we're looking for seems pretty commensurate with the likely size of one or more of these plants that could come online at about the same time frame. There is a risk. I think it's important. There is a risk that in all the worst cases, none of the geothermal plants go forward, and the upgrade goes forward, and we end up, not having money for this, and someone else may not necessarily step up. I think that's a relatively small risk, and I also think it's even worth that risk. This is something we've talked about, because frankly, I deferred this item from a prior board meeting to make sure that we had an opportunity to really vet this pretty carefully. The amount of dollars that we're talking about here, in the fact that we are missing a really important link right now. We're missing some base load renewable energy. This gives that to us if it goes forward. And I think the amount of money that we're putting at risk here is a very reasonable one. I think it's a pretty low risk to do that. And personally, I think I endorse what staff's doing on this.
And some of the hedging that we're doing is because we control a lot of the land, and IID has offered their owned land into that partnership that we have. We're pushing forward on ourselves, the generation side, so we kind of control the generation, and then we're getting the transmission secured. I think that lowers the risk of us being dependent on other developers in that area. So we've done everything possible to make sure this is something that we want to push forward and get it in place, and I think we can do it.
So to clarify what you just said, the department is still pursuing the possibility of building geothermal plants in the Salton Sea area.
Minus the green path, yes.
I seem to recall something about that. And with the SCAPA call for projects, I mean, there was, from what I understand, there were over 200 proposals that came in, or somewhere around that.
There's upwards of 3,000 plus megawatts of proposed project in that area between geothermal and solar.
Well, that sounds like a pretty safe bet then.
So that's why the supply side is extremely high, and then we feel confident that we will get resources developed there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there additional questions from the commissioners? Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, item 27 carries. Next item, please.
Item number 28.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Marty Adams from Water Operations Division. Item 28 is the confirmation of the sale and acceptance of the bids for 5 properties that we successfully auctioned in accordance with our 75-acre commitment under the long-term water agreement with Inyo County. We had 24 properties up. We had 6 or 7 people bid. 5 of them sold. It's better than the last time we did this, so we're on the right track. And so basically what we're asking is that the board accept the bids, all except one sold for the minimum bid, one we made a little bit more money on. And after this, then the City Council will have to approve the sale of the property.
Thank you. Commissioners have any questions?
No, I'd like to move for approval.
Is there a second?
So second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 29.
Item number 29 is the estimated water quality, demand-side management, reclaimed water, and water security expenditures for the 12 months October 1st, 2011 through September 30th, 2012. These do reflect our potential basic budget. We have reduced our demand-side management costs as far as our O&M. We have moved about $9 million of those dollars to our capital budget, and it's a reduction of approximately 24 cents per HCF for customers with this adjustment.
Are there public comment cards on this item?
No.
So I just want to clarify then, you're actually reducing customers' bills with this.
Correct.
Price is going down.
Correct.
Okay, just want to get that on the record. It's important to know.
Yes.
And although October is a ways out, we do have a requirement to notify customers when their rates change, and the most cost-effective way is to put that in their regular bill. So we work with Public Affairs, and the reason we're bringing it to you now so as we can take advantage of that 2-month billing cycle information.
Thank you.
Additional comments by commissioners? Is there a motion to approve item 29?
So moved.
Second.
Hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 30.
Hello again, Marty Adams from Water Operations and Julie Riley from our City Attorney's Office. Item 30 is the authorization to pay the annual fee assessment from Great Basin Air Pollution Control District. The bill this year is $4.48 million. It's about 4.75% less than last year's assessment. We did attend a meeting May 16th in Bridgeport, where the Great Basin Board approved the fee for the year. We were contesting a $125,000 portion of it having to do with Keeler Dunes. They were very sympathetic to our arguments, and they made note that they wanted to leave it in the budget, but if at the end of the year's time we were found not to be responsible for dust coming off the dunes, that they thought we should be reimbursed for that portion. There are some ongoing issues we have within the budget, just in how it's assessed and the things that we've historically paid for. This has been going on for quite a number of years. We are continuing to look at those items. We do have an obligation to pay this. There is a possibility to appeal it if we so desire, but we do have to basically pay up front, and that's the rules of the law that's been passed for this.
To clarify, though, there is the potential for a reimbursement
Of the small portion, right.
Small portion.
So our first chip away at it.
Ms. Riley?
The issue of the department and the city paying first and challenging later was something that was litigated back in the 90s, and an appellate court in Fresno upheld the interpretation of the law that the department would have to pay any requests that were issued by the Great Basin Air Pollution Control District within 30 days of the fee request being sent to the Department of Water and Power.
Commissioners?
Do we audit their records or get receipts for their expenditures?
For the last couple of years, we've audited their budget. It's an interesting issue. It hasn't really been tested because like we get billed by Department of Health Services or Public Health for their regulatory oversight. And in a sense, Great Basin is assessing us for the cost of their regulatory oversight. However, we're 90% of their budget. And so they have been more open with their books, and they claim they're as open as they need to be, but we believe that since we're such a big portion, that we should have a better look at their fees, and that's something that we are continuing to do, is to look at particularly the rates that they're paying for things such as legal services and some of their other consulting fees. So we're in the process of that.
Okay, I support that strongly.
Just for the record, then, we're paying their administrative fees through this.
We're obligated to pay their
270.
salaries. Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Not their fitness center.
No, they don't have.
No, and this is exclusive. Does not include all the other costs that we have related to Owens Valley.
That's right. This is just for Great Basin, which is actually Inyo, Mono, and Alpine counties. And so they represent those areas. It's actually for any air pollution control having to do with water and powers, water diversion. So it's actually to monitoring a Mono Lake as well. So it's not just Owens Lake. And it is their fees. Like I said, we're about 90% of their budget is water and power monitoring, regulatory work.
Now, is there any point in time when the SB 270 fees sunset or will go away because we've cleaned everything up and we can go back to LA?
Well, ultimately only if there's a change in the law. But at this point, what we're hoping for is that fees will reduce. They have been on a slight decline the last few years. In theory, that as there's no new dust areas, it should just go down to the cost of monitoring, which should be substantially less. And I will point out that since we started this, was it the early 90s, Jim? We've paid $83.5 million in fees to regulate us on the lake. So it's a substantial amount of money. But we are looking for that to trend down. The Great Basin Board, I showed them a graph of the fees over the years, and they asked the same question. They said, where's this heading? Because it should go down to monitoring costs as there's less need for studies and modeling and looking at new areas. So it should hit some plateau in the future, unless legislation change that could change the rules altogether.
Thank you. Additional questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Reluctantly seconded.
All right. Hearing no firm objections or abstentions, the motion carries. Next item, please.
Item number 31, grievance number M-092-06.
Is there a public speaker?
I do
Good
not
morning,
have.
Commissioners. My name is Jack Mack. I am.
Mr. Mack, have you submitted a good afternoon. Good to see you again. Have you submitted a card, please?
I can.
Procedurally, how would you like to move ahead on this?
They should turn a card. If they want.
The proper thing to do, Mr. Mack, is to turn in a public speaker card.
If I'm speaking on behalf of MEA?
Yes, that would be acceptable. Why don't you offer your comments now and then give Ms. Mastros a speaker card at the conclusion of your comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much. Thanks.
Please proceed. And you have an unlimited amount of time in which to present.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. We could be here till midnight.
As I said, I'm counsel for MEA. I'm here to address the board on 3 grievances before you today. Numbers 31, 33, and 34. 31 involves Ms. Reyes. The 34 involves Mr. Najad. And those were indicated as self-represented, but they are actually MEA grievances. And 33 is also an MEA grievance. I have been here through the entire meeting, and I was happy to hear the comments about transparency. I think that's a wonderful thing, and I hope that translates all the way down into our new management that I'm glad to see, too. We look forward to working with the new board members and the new management to eliminate problems that we may have had in the past. All 3 of the grievances kind of involved a core issue of what civil service is all about, and that's the merit system. To go back and give you a little history, not that you want it, but the concept of civil service dates back to the Han Dynasty, and it's like 600 BC. Western countries were a little late in getting around to the concept of civil service, but the city of Los Angeles did so in 1907. And back in the bad old days, what it was meant to do was get away from the spoils system and make sure city jobs were occupied by merit and based upon, or by qualified people. So enough of the history lesson. I just wanted to remind you that, because that's the issue we have here today in all 3 grievances. In regard to item number 31, Ms. Reyes, I read the report by the commission, or the committee rather, recommending that grievance be rejected, and I'd just like to make a few points on that. In recommending denial of the grievance, the committee found that a policy, rule, practice, etc., had been violated by when Mr. Lakatos was upgraded to the HRDA level without any competitive selection process, but recommended that the grievance be denied because the violation was kind of remedied afterwards. That's all fine and good, but that doesn't really help the grievance. That kind of absolves the department of its mistake, but it really doesn't help Ms. Reyes at all. In November of 2004, there were 3 Director of Human Resources positions filled in the department. They were Ms. Nagin, who was Director of Human Resources at an A level. There was Mr. Lakatos, who was at a B level, and Ms. Reyes, the grievant, was also at B level. The application of MOU Article 13.6 to keep Mr. Lakatos at the same salary rate as the A-level Director of Human Resources was misapplied. The article in question states in part, and I quote, "Upon reassignment to a position with a lesser salary rate for any other reason, the manager shall receive the previous salary rate until and unless salary schedule increases or salary step advancement credits at the same or higher salary schedules entitle the manager to a higher salary." Mr. Lakatos was not reassigned. He occupied the same position. The department, in addressing the grievance, raised the issue that the letter of agreement signed in good faith by the association in April of 2003 was not binding because it wasn't signed. That may be true. I'm not sure. That's a matter for legal interpretation in another forum. But it is also true that Ms. Hagan, Mr. Lindsay, and Mr. Martinez did not have the authority to unilaterally affect the salary inequity for Mr. Lakatos. So it provides the association shall provide to the employer not later than August 1st of the last year of the term of this MOU a listing of each position identified by DDR number, civil service class title, and incumbent's name where a salary inequity is alleged to exist. The parties shall consider any and all inequities presented in accordance with this article in conjunction with the meeting for process of the successor MOU. So they didn't have the power either. When we look at this, it's apparent, I think, that the department went through the motions to cover itself for its mistakes that it made. But as I said earlier in my comments, that doesn't help Ms. Reyes. It was an oversight, I think, to circumvent the civil service system. The ultimate selection of Mr. Lakatos really was kind of tainted because the whole process was done incorrectly in the first place. The department merely rubber stamped its initial selection of its favored candidate. It also didn't address the department did not address the grievance as a whole. The allocation mention of the AR Director A made a sham of the entire process. This action by the department was really a non-action. It appears as a deliberate method of undermining a commitment to Ms. Reyes and others so that their grievances would be addressed. The HR department must know whether or not an allocation is required in any given situation. The chilling effect created by the department's action and inaction in this doesn't just extend to Ms. Reyes. It extends to every qualified manager who's passed over or bypassed for promotion due to favoritism, nepotism, biases, prejudices, preferential treatments. So I ask this full committee board to reconsider the committee's recommendation and grant this grievance.
Does that conclude your remarks on this?
On item number 31.
On item 31. Is there discussion from the board? Yeah. I would like to thank you for your presentation. The consideration that we have is essentially to accept or reject the recommendation from the Personnel Relations Committee, and you kept your comments specific to that item, and I very much appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Are there any other public comments at this time?
For 31?
For 31?
No.
All right. Is there a motion related to this? By the way, I just want to say I'm very sympathetic with this situation. But are there any motions related?
I would move to uphold the committee's recommendation to deny the grievance.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Hearing no objections or abstentions, the motion carries. Next item, please.
Did you want to continue on with 33?
33?
And 34?
You want to go directly to 33 as long as...
And then we can go back to 32?
Since you're already here, sir,
Okay.
why don't you continue? Item 33.
And once again, recommending to deny this grievance, the committee found that the grievance was moot because the remedy sought had already been effectuated. In reaching its recommendation, the committee might have made a couple of factual errors. First, the Director of Human Resources grievance is not self-represented. Once again, MEA is representing them. Secondly, the wrong standard was applied. Under the procedure for resolution of disputes in Section 5.4 of the MOU, there is no requirement for the MEA grievant to discuss with his or her supervisor the nature of the dispute in sufficient detail to allow for resolution. The procedure only requires that the parties shall attempt to resolve informally any dispute, claim, or complaint within the scope of the article. If the matter cannot be resolved at that level, then the formal grievance in writing shall be submitted. Again, this grievance is about the compliance with the city's classification structure. Proper employee relations practices relative to bargaining unit work and just plain fairness to department employees. It also is another example of the department putting employees into high-paying positions that are totally unqualified to occupy them. On October 1st, 2009, Peter Lakatos officially retired from the Department of Water and Power, leaving the position of Director of Human Resources, the Director Manager of Labor Relations vacant. He was, however, physically gone beginning June 25th, 2009. The position of Director of Human Resources is represented by the MEA. The UA4, his assistant in Labor Relations, assumed his responsibilities of the Director of Human Resources, Manager of Labor Relations position beginning June 25th, 2009. In October of 2009, the department announced that Mr. Tyrone Jeffrey, an ESM manager, would be the new Director of Labor Relations. An ESM is by civil service class specifications supposed to be planning and directing, organizing and reviewing through subordinate supervisors the design, construction, operation, repair, and maintenance of a major electrical facility. Obviously, an ESM was not and is not the proper classification by budget, by classification, or historically by past practice to direct labor relations. However, Mr. Jeffrey was installed over labor relations nonetheless. Since Mr. Jeffrey was totally unqualified and inexperienced to manage labor relations, it is obvious that UA4, which is a position represented by the Association of Confidential Employees, ACE, continued to assume the duties of the vacant Director of Human Resource position. After MEA requested to meet and confer on Mr. Jeffrey's installation to labor relations, the department reversed its installation of Mr. Jeffrey, and he was returned to his proper status. MEA then raised the problem of the Director of Human Resources position over labor relations being vacant and thereby causing other employees to work out of class and bargaining unit work to be given to another association in meetings of the TRAC committee, created under the provisions of Article 21 of the MEA. There was no resolution in the TRAC meetings either. Nothing was done and the problem persisted. Finally, on May 6, 2010, MEA filed a grievance on this issue for the following reasons. The assumption of the duties by the UA4 assigned to labor relations is a gift of MEA bargaining unit work to ACE, since the UA4 is represented by ACE. Secondly, the UA4 is working out of class since the duties of the position properly performed by a Director of Human Resources. This is a result in a loss of promotional opportunities for MEA members. After giving the department 2 time extensions, they still failed to respond to the grievance, so MEA appealed to the next level. The department responded to the grievance initiation 3 days after the grievance was appealed to the next level. During the progression of this grievance through the prescribed levels, the Assistant General Manager, Employee Services Division, Michelle Nagin, told MEA that the position would be filled properly. On June 1st, 2010, Michelle Nagin emailed Tom Anderberry, president of the MEA, saying that the department's response to the grievance was emailed to him and that the position was approved to fill and a certification request has been, in the perfect present tense, generated. However, on June 14, 2010, after causing MEA to believe that the issue had been resolved and delaying the process for 13 days, Ms. Nagin, by email, completely retracted her statement and apologized for the confusion. There was no confusion. Ms. Nagin simply misled the association. This proves that the department's designee assigned to this grievance was totally untrustworthy and her dealings with MEA were totally dishonest, acting completely in bad faith. Further, contrary to department claims, those they send to the table to negotiate do not have authority to speak for the department. After telling MEA in writing that the position would be filled and the certification had been generated, it is obvious that she either got 2 different instructions that completely contradicted her written statements, or she was incapable of settling this grievance, or she lied. The department made the grievance process a farce. Since the MA cannot trust the word of the department's executives, MEA must take whatever precautionary steps necessary to ensure honest, good faith settlement, or treatment rather. For this grievance to be denied because it's now moot is completely exasperating, ridiculous, and outrageous. The department failed to process this grievance in accordance with the MOU requirements at every level. This grievance was filed to the board on July 10th, 2010, but it was heard on April 29th, 2011, some 9 months later, despite the fact that the MOU requires the board to hear grievances within 30 days. And this happened only after MEA filed an unfair employee relations practice claim with the Employee Relations Board for failure to hear the grievance according to MOU terms. MEA does not believe it was the intent of the parties or that a third-party mutual would find that it is an acceptable good faith practice to ignore the grievance until it is self-corrected and then deem the grievance moot. This is not a legitimate good faith effort to resolve this grievance, but that is exactly what happened in this case.
Are there questions from the commission?
Yeah, it seems, I have a question. It seems that one of the reasons why the committee elected to or recommends to deny the grievance is because it was not filed in a timely manner. Can you address that issue?
If I could, I'd like to turn to Ms. Luke to address that. She's more familiar with the procedural aspects.
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Luke, and I'm here representing MEA. And I represented them in this grievance when we went to the committee, so I'm familiar with it. It's not untimely. There's a concept of grievances called ongoing. Every day that that position was filled improperly, there could have been a grievance filed. We could have filed it when the UA assumed the duty, the UA4 assumed the duties of Mr. Licatos when he left. We could have filed it every day she did her work. We could have filed it when Mr. Jeffries took over. We could have filed it every day he did his work because it was filled improperly. So there's ongoing grievance, and that's what we claim here, and it's true. This was an ongoing grievance. If you deny or ignore the fact that there are ongoing grievances, what you're going to do is force associations to file grievances every day. You can file them every day because obviously they didn't hear the grievance when you did file it on time. We're held to the time frames, but they can ignore them, and then the grievance is self-correcting, and then you deny the grievance because it's moved. This grievance was not handled timely by the department at any level. And the only reason you have it here today is because MEA filed to the Employee Relations Board, filed an unfair. And once we filed an unfair, the department was forced to sit down and talk to us about it, and then got you guys to schedule this grievance in a timely manner. It's been sitting at the board since October of last year.
Thank you.
Any comments from the commission? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Without there being a second, this item is not approved, and it may come back to this body at another time.
Very well.
Is there a comment from the city attorney?
Yes. Deputy City Attorney Wendy Gens. The proper procedure, if this board is not going to approve the report, is to remand it back to the committee for consideration. If this board wants to give the committee some kind of guidance in terms of what additional facts or issues it wants the committee to explore, it may do so, but this board's rules establish the committee for fact-finding and for decision-making, so it needs to go back to the committee.
All right. Mr. Moss, do you have some recommendations for us?
Yeah, I think that the committee should look again at this issue of the mootness because I'm not entirely, based upon the limited record I've seen, I'm not entirely convinced of that as the proper resolution.
All right. Ms. Gens, did you understand Mr. Moss's consideration?
Yes, I do understand.
All right, thank you. All right. Next item, please. Item 34.
Right, 6th Street,
You don't have to do the Han Dynasty again. You can.
You don't want the history lesson?
I liked it, but you know.
Again, there was a few errors in the committee's findings in denying this particular grievance also. Number one, Mr. Najad's grievance is not self-represented. It's MEA represented. The grievance initiation was filed on August 2nd, 2010, stamped in the Labor Relations, but the department never responded. MEA appealed to the next level. The grievance was filed to the next level on August 25th, 2010. The department failed to respond to that appeal. The department did not respond to this appeal, so MEA appealed to the board. The appeal to the board was filed on October 13th, 2010, and was heard by the committee on April 29th, 2011. The grievance specifically names reassignment and change of classifications as the techniques used by management to appoint, not select, who they want, and to bypass the most qualified candidates by reassignment of managers without consideration of all qualified candidates in direct violation of the letter of agreement with the MEA, and by changing the classification of positions interchangeably in direct violation of the city personnel audit. During the initial hearing of this matter before the committee, I was also present, and I remember Mr. Benjamin stating that he needed flexibility in running the business. Believe me, I understand that I'm from the private sector. You need flexibility. Fortunately or unfortunately for the City of Los Angeles, the Department of Water and Power, the civil service system is present. So some of that flexibility might not be there where it would be in the private sector. Management's arguments about timeliness and realignments are flawed. The grievant had no reason to file in 2009, as was suggested by the management arguments. The change of classification, which management argued happened in October 2009, is a direct violation of the city personnel audit, but it did not impact the grievant, since he has status in both classes and could have been considered for the position in both classes. The response intentionally ignores that an arbitrary reassignment was used without giving the grievant the opportunity and consideration, even though he was the assistant director, has managed major sections of the division and managed 2 of the generating stations and had status in both PEM and ESM classifications. Since the memo by Mr. Benjamin for reassignment of an ESM to direct the generation division was issued in July 19, 2011, officially issued in August 31st, 2010. Their copies are available. And the reassignment did not consider the grievant. The August 2nd, 2010 filing was well within the timeliness guidelines. If the grievant was selected, or at least considered, no matter whether an ESM or a PEM classification was used, the grievant would not have filed a grievance. The management argument states that the generation division had an engineering component in 2007, and the engineering component was removed in 2009. Therefore, it states that a power engineering manager was the appropriate class to manage the division in 2007, and the electrical services manager is the appropriate class to manage the division in 2009. That's not quite accurate. Engineering is an important and critical portion of the work of the generation division. Generation division has had and continues to have engineers in the generating stations all the time. In fact, the generation division has had and continues to have a power engineering manager managing its Haynes engineering or generating station. The assignment of a power engineering as the generation director happened in 2006, prior to the quoted 2007 city personnel audit that stated the positions are not interchangeable. At that time, LIDWP did not allow the grievant the opportunity to compete for the director position, even though he was managing all of the generation organization as an ESM. The addition of a small engineering study or group with a staff of about 12 in 2006 as a reason to classify the position as a PMM position, and then removing it to classify the position as an ESM, is a method used by the department to circumvent the intent of the city personnel ruling that the positions cannot be used interchangeably. All of the arguments about the change of the classification for the position is irrelevant for this particular case, since the grievant has status in both classifications and the department could and should have given him the opportunity to manage the division both in 2006 and in October 2009, no matter whether the classification was ESM or PEM. And once again, I'm asking that the committee or the board reject the recommendation of the committee and grant this grievance.
Just for the record, my name is Benjamin, not Benjamin.
My apologies.
We're even now.
Are there questions from the commissioners? Is there a motion?
Yes, I'd move to accept the recommendation by the committee and deny the grievance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Not hearing any objections or abstentions, the motion carries. Thank you for your presentations.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, a point of privilege, that the services of Ms. Reyes and Mr. Najid are held in great esteem, and the denial of the grievance is not a reflection of their service to this department or the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back to item number 32, and I do have a speaker card. Cynthia Gaudioso.
Good afternoon. My name is Cynthia Gaudioso, and I'm here in the capacity of the union ACE. I spoke with your honorable board on April 5th when ACE requested that you suspend the rendering of a decision of the report agenda item until such time as you had an opportunity to review the documents submitted to you on April 5th and April 6th in the format of an exceptions appeal. Since the agenda item up for consideration today is identical to that of April 5th, with a report dated in February of this year, ACE can come to no other conclusion than that you did not review the materials. We have come to this conclusion because many of the documents in the exceptions report absolutely refute the information in this February report. For example, the emails prepared by the males in the Labor Relations Office stress that Mr. Lakatos offered pay to males in the Labor Relations Office, but not to the females prior to the temporary assignment letter of agreement being signed. The males opted to not accept the offered pay at the UA4 level, but instead take the overtime. No option was ever given to the females regarding this issue. Another example that was in the exceptions report in regards to discipline was that training was offered to Mr. Lakatos and the only male at the time to go to a UCLA management course. And it was only when one of the female employees, Ms. Eileen Liu, who now is in power but worked in labor relations, demanded that the females that were in the office be able to also partake of this management opportunity. Another meaty example that we put into this exceptions report that shows gender discrimination based on Mr. Lakatos was pay-related issues, which was the basis of a grievances and complaints filed by 4 female UA3s working for Mr. Lakatos going back to 2002. It is clear in our grievance initiation form, the first level meeting with Michelle Nagin, the second level meeting with Cecilia Weldon, and the third level meeting with the Personnel Committee, where Ms. Garcia was the spokesperson, that ACE has asserted gender discrimination as the basis for selection of male employee twice and non-selection of female employees twice. While ACE may not have specifically used the legal term gender discrimination so as to be politically correct at the time with our chain of command, superiors actually hearing the matters, it was at a minimum implied at the onset. Our grievance initiation form stated in the remedy, and I'll quote, promotion to any other UA 3-4 that becomes available department-wide. This is a basic equal employment opportunity principle. The extension to the one male employee provides an advantage to that employee over the 2 female employees who have expressed interest. Now, that's in our grievance initiation form. How can someone say that we did not assert the issue of discrimination at the very onset of our grievance? But it was made perfectly clear at the commission level. Yet, that was 4 months ago in February, and we still haven't had the department's legal obligation to hear the issue addressed in any forum. Instead, management has tried to turn the other way and not accept liability for not addressing this gender discrimination at the early stage of the grievance process. In the report, they say that ACE used the terms male employees and female employees as a means of identifying the employees, rather than the use of names. ACE has asserted that the terms male and female were meant as an implication of gender discrimination. We have said that we could have said the specific names of our co-workers. Mr. Rogers, the male, Ms. Ogata, the female. But at the time, we wanted just to say male and female because we have to work with these individuals every day. They are our friends, they are our co-workers, and they are also ACE members. So when we use the term male and female, that shouldn't be held against us because we didn't want to cite specific names of our friends and our peers. ACE asserts that nobody has a right to put words in our mouth or to take away the perception that we had that discrimination did occur. It's our hope that the board won't turn their back on us as management unfortunately has. ACE brought out other issues of just gender discrimination at the committee level that were in addition to what we had put in the exceptions report that we had asked you to please look at. It is clear that this has been an issue that has been occurring for a long time. Therefore, we ask that in order to make an informed decision, as we did on April 5th, that you must have an EEOS or some type of investigation prior to ruling on this grievance. Without that investigation, there's no means, proof, validation, or any reason, or a reason for that the board made the basis for their decision. And in fact, the entire grievance process is invalidated as far as we're concerned. ACE comes to you as the grievant. However, we are also the labor reps that work on management's behalf in such grievances. The members that are behind you represented management in regards to the issues against MEA. We are able to wear the hats, and obviously we wore them well since you adopted 2 of the 3 reports. Discrimination is a serious allegation, and it's a serious issue. It's not something that should be swept under the rug. The department should not condone it or take it lightly. We as labor reps hear this issue on a regular basis. We see allegations of discrimination being investigated by EEOS all the time. We advise our managers and our respective divisions that we liaison for to address any allegations quickly and without hesitation. Why is management not looking at ACE's issues as seriously? ACE has probably upwards to 100 years collectively of experience between the 8 reps investigating grievances and hearing grievances. We can state unequivocally that this issue cannot be ignored and should not have been ignored through this entire grievance process. Don't let anyone else tell you differently. If you were to once again look at the exceptions report, it specifically speaks that in a December 11th, 2008 report from Mr. Lakatos to Ms. Nagin, it speaks to the roles of Labor Relations Office and the roles of the EEOS. And I'm going to quote from the exceptions report exactly what it says. It states, we are to submit to EEOS, quote, any and all matters coming to the attention of Labor Relations Office that might conceivably involve issues of alleged employment discrimination. It was agreed at the time that such a protocol would assist information flow within the department and better enable the department to manage liability associated with potential litigation. It was at the time also made quite clear that Labor Relations Office should refrain from making any qualitative assessment of potential claims and rather refer all such matters to EEOS without delay for evaluation by specialized staff assigned to that office. So the question before you today is, why hasn't this been done for ACE? Mr. Licata's, Ms. Garcia's predecessor, sent this letter to Michelle Nagin. Michelle Nagin heard our grievance at the first level. Ms. Weldon was CC'd on that letter. She heard our grievance at the second level. Ms. Garcia is now Peter's predecessor. She heard it at the third level. The bottom line is nothing has changed in our office that says that we do any type of investigation. EEO needs to do the investigation. And I find it very interesting that when we were here on April 5th, Ms. Garcia, and I hate to do this because she's my supervisor, but she came up here and stated, quote, that there was no EEO violation. How would she know if there was an EEO violation or not? First of all, it's not in our purview as the Labor Relations Office to determine whether there's an EEO claim or a violation or any validity to it. And second of all, she was part of the process. She should have referred it. So how could she say that there was no violation when it had never been investigated? That's what we keep asking you to do. Look at all the components and give it to the EEOS people before you factor in some type of decision. We also are suspect, and ACE has mentioned this throughout the process, that why wasn't a labor relation rep, such as myself, such as Anita, such as DeMarlo, why wasn't someone who wasn't involved with this particular issue? We had 8 people at the time. Even if one person represented, there was 3 or 4 people in that office that could have been the management representative from the Labor Relations Office and not be Ms. Garcia, who was hearing it in regards to a matter that, in regards to the issue. She was too close to it. We feel that it was compromised. And one of the last things I want to say is the ACE president on May 24th contacted EEOS to ask if the investigation had been launched or had started, the process had started. Where were we with this particular grievance? And she was told that Ms. Garcia, Ms. Gintz, and Ms. Anderson had discussed it, that they determined that the matter was not going to be investigated at this, they didn't say at this time, they just said it wasn't going to be investigated, and that it was going to move forward to this committee. So ACE is concerned about whether or not they'll ever get a fair shake with this issue. Is the process contaminated? I don't know. Must we take this issue outside of the department to get a proper and unbiased look at our concerns? We asked for reassurance to our concerns. At the beginning of the meeting, you spoke about transparency and accountability. Please consider this issue as important as any other item on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments from the commission? Is there a motion?
Well, it seems that the committee's letter has 3 recommendations in it. 1, that the grievance be denied. 2, that the department transmit the file, this recommendation that the department transmit the file of this grievance to the Office of Equal Employment Opportunity Services for an investigation of the claims of discrimination. And 2, that the department then report back to the committee, Personnel Committee, within 60 days. So I would like to make a motion that all 3 of those recommendations be approved by the board today.
Is there a second?
And I would like to just speak for myself in that although serving on the Personnel Committee, at this time, I really fail to see specific incidences of gender discrimination. However, I'm fine with an investigation because of being a mother of a daughter, being a female person in a male-dominated industry, I'm very sensitive to those issues, very respectful to those issues. So I see no harm in having additional investigation done, and so I just wanted to note that.
May I make a comment and a question?
I would like to permit it. Ms. Guadiosa, please.
Thank you. What if, in the investigation, it shows that our claim in this grievance was validated? What do you do for us at that point? And then I have one other question is, if two of the members of the three that are sitting here were the people who recommended the rendering of the decision, are we only maybe possibly looking at Mr. Moss to do an override on that at the same time? So what is the harm? I guess I want to know, what's the harm in holding off on the rendering of the decision to the very basis of the question that we asked 2 months ago? And if you don't see that the issue that we brought forth in all the levels had any kind of discrimination, then at that point in time, you can render the decision and we'll accept it for what your take on the situation is. But what do you do to us or for us if EEO says that they actually did see something based on what this grievance is? What do we do with it then? What's the harm in having them have all the information to do the investigation? The labor reps aren't going anywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gens, do you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I think I need to clarify a couple of things as procedurally what happens here in the Department of Water and Power. And that is, we have a policy in the administrative manual 70-02, which talks about the procedure for filing complaints and processing complaints alleging discrimination within the Department of Water and Power. And that sets up the EEOS as the agency designed to investigate, and if they find violations, they also make recommendations to the department in terms of resolution of those violations. We also have within that policy a provision that states a grieving party has the right to file a claim with EEOS or in other forms. In other words, under their MOU, ACE and all of the unions do have an anti-discrimination provision. What happened here is their initial grievance did not cite that MOU violation. They only cited the general violation about unfair practices. And so a decision was made that this grievance was really a grievance under that unfair provision, not under the anti-discrimination provisions. And hence, the decision was also made that to the extent that ACE is now making a recommendation that there is some kind of discrimination based on gender that needs to be investigated, the committee recommended that it then go to EEOS for their investigation and for their decision as to whether it's been violated. The idea that there should be a report back to the committee was to just simply allow the committee to know that what is being done at the EEOS level, not to revisit this grievance. This grievance is to be resolved on the basis of the initial violation, which was Article 1 of their MOU, and then EEOS will be a separate, because we do not normally allow them to investigate in one and then also investigate in another and potentially come up with adverse decisions.
Thank you for the clarification of the effect of the motion. That's exactly what I would want to have happen, because it seems that the Personnel Committee was quite clear in its report that the basis of the grievance should be denied, but that because of the allegations that came up during the grievance process of the discrimination, that should be investigated and the report back to the Personnel Committee.
And it is correct that EOS has not yet investigated, because until this committee approves that report and recommendation, there is no authority to send it directly to EOS.
And that's, again, why I want to make the motion the way it is.
So, Mr. Moss, you have moved the item. Ms. Noonan has seconded. And hearing no objections or abstentions, the item carries. At this point, we have concluded the public session of the Board of Water and Power Commissioners. So I turn it over to you, Mr. Brown, to...
We still, excuse me.
we have filed
Yeah.
items.
We have,
Oh, I'm so
filed
sorry.
items 35A, B, and C. I did have a card for 35B. Dr. Clyde Williams, I don't see him, but I
He's
just
gone.
needed to call. Okay.
He's out.
Then there are no cards for the filed items 35A, B, and C.
So we will deem items 35 filed, and
Also, item 36.
will be deemed filed.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Brown, take us away.
Thank you, sir. The board shall now go into closed session, and in conjunction therewith, the vote or abstention of every member present thereon in accordance with Section 54-957.1 of the California Government Code shall be reported.
Thank you. The board meeting is now closed.
No, we're just recessed into closed session.
Recessing into closed session.
Okay. Can we have a minute, a break to stretch one's legs before?
Yes, because we have they need to come in and turn off all the speakers and everything, so we
Very
have
good.
a recess of a few minutes.